with y'all.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, we are live apparently. So, yeah.
Works for me.
Let's have a look at the live stream on YouTube. Bum, 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 bum. It'd be interesting to
So
see
I
who
think
jumps
my
in.
girls were a little bit further than I don't know how, but my girls were further than lefties. Because I had orange already showing like last Saturday night when my lights came on. My pistols were already turning orange. I haven't even added winter frost yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I think it was because my environment's a little different, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've seen from what I saw with from the mystery grower was that the orange gasm is definitely further along um, than the golden goat. That's for sure.
Okay.
Um, that was definitely looking at. They sent some pictures of it under the microscope. Well, not under the microscope, but like dodgy pictures under a jeweler's loupe kind of thing.
Right, right.
That challenge I gather of trying to take photographs through your camera this tight. Yeah, yeah, it's a nightmare, man.
Yeah, trust
Um,
me, we all been there. They got this new little one of my gromies is using it. He's gonna tell me he's gonna give me a review on it after another week. But it's a lens you can hook to your phone, and it's like a macro.
mm, mm.
So far, it's really. He says it's doing its thing. He wants to make sure it's sturdy and holds up before he tells me, go ahead and buy it. But it's like $20 on Amazon. But yeah, that's what most of the guys are starting to use.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the. Yeah, it's always a catch with like Zoom stuff, though. Is
Yeah,
the it's just so shaky because you are so zoomed in.
right, right. And one of my gromies is trying that new little USB digital one that's detachable without the
Mm.
cord, the cordless one. He's trying that one out. He just got it Monday. So yeah, we're all looking for something a little bit better.
Yeah, I heard that I don't know. I saw somebody mentioned the latest Android update stopped their USB microscope that they had from working with the phone. I don't know if that was
Oh
or
wow.
whatever. Hey,
Hmm.
there's 8 people, 9 people watching. Wow. Hey, welcome everybody.
Hey,
Yeah,
what's up,
this is
everybody?
just a general hangout session chat. We're just shooting the shit, so to speak. Yeah. I feel I'm going to find myself going on some kind of crusade at some point about this whole genetics thing. Um, the other day, I tried to start because I could access the EU Seed Finder database, and that you can query it, and they've got a lot of the lineage, which is nice. So you can put in a strain name, and you can find out what the parents were. And then you can take one of those parents, put it in, find out which its parents were, and so you go down the rabbit hole. you know, um,
Right.
and my God, it's within just a few hits. It's like you're looking at. Yeah, so for each one generation you go back, there's 4 plants.
Yep.
So very quickly, if you go back like just 3 generations, it's like
Yeah,
this
you're yeah. It's like
huge
looking at a dog
selection.
pedigree, dude.
Unless
Yeah.
that's where it started, if it only, if it just started at this point. Um, and so, that was really, yeah. Oh, I was like, fuck me, this is going to take forever. Hey there, Resurrection Prophet. How you doing, bud? Unlike Fumi, I'm not going to go put the link to this in the public chat right now. uh, I don't know, Resurrection. I don't know how to. If I tell you what, if you're on Instagram, just send me a message or follow us quickly at Peel Grow Systems or at Operation Grow, and I can send you the link via there. You can jump on if you want to join in on the chat, dude. HV Star Meadow. Hey, all good. Sampled a bit of some blue lime pie.
Oh wow.
Mm.
What's up, Chad? I don't have my other means of visionary tools with me today. I'm actually on my honey-do list, so y'all bear with me, Chad. I'm usually active, but today I'm on my honey-do list painting the house. That's why y'all don't see me either.
You're doing it in the dark.
Right? I should be. Shit. I
Hmm.
never have to paint again. Oh no, fuck that. You're not painting no more.
They just put a 5-liter tin, 2-gallon tin in the middle of the room, couple of cherry bombs. Room's
yeah,
painted.
right? I get the
One
kids in
hit.
some shit. The kids, she'd be like, "Oh no, we're getting the kids here for this one. We're calling their ass. Get on the grill. I know you can do that one."
Oh man. Yeah, it was quite good. There was quite a good chat earlier this morning, or my time earlier this morning, very early your time, I guess, on the Portland one that had Cladamus Coot on. It was a good general chat going on there. That was very interesting, I must say.
Right, right.
Mm.
Man, I be thinking like this, like, okay, from my background of breeding dogs, I would hate to see some of the pedigrees on these plants where you got these multi hybrids, like it would be, oh my goodness, going through one of them. Wow.
It would be, yeah, bit of a nightmare.
Definitely, definitely.
Let me quickly sort this out for.
One of those super poly hybrids or something, that's like,
Yeah.
whoa.
And that's the catch. I mean, I just say people just need to ask the question, and the more I've been looking into it and diving into it, because I was sort of like preaching about this, so I really got to make sure I am kind of get my like ducks in a row here. And I'm always happy to be corrected if I've got it wrong at any point. But the reality is, if that packet says, there are 5 different phenotypes. Look for, one of 5 phenotypes, or there's 10 phenotypes in here. It's like, well, okay, hang on. If I grow them all under the same conditions, what you're actually saying is there's 10 genotypes
Right.
that are expressing themselves, because the phenotype is just the outward expression of the genotype. And if they're all being grown in the same, conditions and everything, then you would expect that to be, they'd all come up the same. They'd all show you the same phenotype in those conditions.
Right, right. It's gonna take, I think, 5 to 7 years will be there. But as of now, no, dude. If you're growing out something like that, if you get a polyhybrid that's got, say, like 9-pound hammer, Jinx says that has like I think it's 8 or 9 different phenotypical traits you'll get. Like that's just what it is. And
yeah,
so,
no, my question though is, I think that, and sorry to interrupt you there, buddy, but that's a good point, because I think the question that needs to be asked, I think this is where we, the consumer or the buyer, needs to smarten up, is, okay, is that if I grow one seed and I take a cut from it, I can expect to get, under different conditions, 7 different phenotypes? Or are you saying in this packet, if I pop 7 seeds, I could get 7 different phenotypes all in the same condition, which is 2 very different answers
right,
that you get. So I
right,
think, I think that's where we are letting ourselves down, is that we're not asking the
the
right
right
question.
questions. Yep. And we're not looking at I don't think at first we were looking at breeding the same way, like as lines and based on lines, whereas the majority of the world looks as certain lines and they base it or a line on that, and they start to IBL it. We don't even value the IBLs as much.
Well, I mean, that's how they become stabilized.
Right, right.
Because it has to be that, because what's also kind of like unique, I wish we could get some, I'd love to get a panel of seed breeders on who are willing to talk openly and honestly about it, and maybe even bring in somebody from, proper, I want to say, established commercial ag to come in and say, okay, let's talk about this from, how does it work at that kind of level? I know for some people, it isn't much interest of them, how it gets done at a bigger scale, but the challenges,
that's where we're going.
the challenges that it presents, and the lessons that can be learned from it are a lot, really valuable.
I mean, I look at it like this. I know from some of the hemp stuff I've watched and talked to and conferences I've been to, they're looking for the breeders that can stabilize certain lines and things like that because they've got it to where now you've got certain plants that are films that won't take pollen. And
Hmm.
they need that in the hemp world because say you're running, you know, 15 acres of fiber and your neighbor has a small like cannabis grow, he's growing his own personal medicine, you don't want to be pollinating his stuff as well, you know, or popping or planting 15 acres of seeds and then you got males coming out. You don't want that, you can't have that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
just
yeah.
what it is. Yeah, so I mean, I understand that's where we're going and that's what we need. It's just about us as consumers understanding that and following what is the correct patterns.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I see. Okay, so since this guy, but there's a difference in phenotypes, genotypes, and chemotypes. So the baseline of all of those is the genotype. That is the base. The genotype controls what your all of your phenotype output expressions may be, as well as all the chemotypes. And then chemotype is kind of a subcategory of phenotype is a rather large all-encompassing umbrella that covers a lot of different things, and chemotype is a sub piece of that because it's a measurable external expression of the genotype. And in chemotype and phenotype expression, you can start to mess with. So a very two classic examples being by making it cooler, you can trigger that purpling effect. And by stressing it, you can increase the THC. So these are, that becomes, these tricks that you can do with it. You can't really change the genotype. That unfortunately is what that's the baseline material that you're stuck with. And that's where that really, it's a careful selective breeding program comes into play because, to control the genes is a long, slow process. It's not a quick overnight process. When you can snip it, which everybody goes up in arms, I can go and cut. I want the strawberry flavor of this. I want the, the heady high from that, and I can just cut the bits I need, bring them, and I want the 24-day flowering of this, and splice them all together. And instead of it taking me 20 years to get there, it takes me 3 weeks or an afternoon eventually. Then why not? It's the same end result. It's just the way you're doing it is different. Instead of using a scalpel, you're using sledgehammer.
Yeah, but like I
Oh,
mean,
hey,
even
by the
with the
way, Res
marker,
underground Res.
what's good, Rez? How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing
It's
well.
since I'm getting ready to pollinate, it's an interesting conversation for me because I don't really want to pass these seeds on necessarily more than just check them out myself. Um,
Right.
you want to check them out. Of course, we want to check everything out before we even give it to somebody. I mean, but all those seeds we got in those bag seeds, were never checked out. But now we're at this place, and that's what Peter's talking about. We're at this place now, at this juncture that the plan's becoming accepted. So now that it's accepted, I guess there needs to be some kind of form. But I mean, I guess that's I don't understand that form yet. So I would never even say I understand breeding at all in that sense. So, but I think there needs to be a baseline, maybe. Um, you know what I'm saying? There's kind of
Hmm.
you can't go back. We can't go all the way back, can we? You can't go back and
No. I mean, the toothpaste is very much out of the tube. Okay, yes, I know there are ways of getting toothpaste back in the tube, but
Yeah, but now like
the
now
KY
like
is out of.
right. But now like you can use like in the hemp world and then most of the legal states are using marker assisted breeding or like Peter was saying, some people are using gene splicing, but most of the marker assisted breeding they're marking traits and they can get projects done, you know, within a couple of months instead of 3 to 5, 6, 7 years. Just by looking at those markers and eliminating anything that doesn't have it.
And the catch is every time somebody does it in this industry, it all seems to go to shit straight away because it all revolts on it really quickly. Like, oh, you're going to take all my intellectual property. Well, if you documented it properly to start with, we wouldn't be in this position. So the only way you can...
you got to look at it like this. You couldn't document because that was there an enhancement of a charge. So, you got to look at how they fucked us. Like, we wanted to document, but we couldn't.
22.
Yeah, but now that we can...
It's a culture of outlaws and renegades because you were going against the establishment saying you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of us have that mindset already built into us that we're gonna. Oh, you can say that, but I have to see it.
Yeah. I mean, it is this. I mean, it's said, it's when the revolutionaries take over. It's like, oh shit, now what? We've only known how to be the revolutionary. We haven't thought beyond what do we do after we've got there.
Right, because
and then the first person who stands up to try and take charge, somebody to revolt against now. We know what to do again.
I mean, I look at it like, when we couldn't do it, so we knew what the enhancements and bullshit was. Like, that's a charge from going from possession to mastermind. Like, oh fuck no. So you keep your notes, but you're not detailing, like, especially the way you should be. And that's what kind of put us behind, I think. And then a lot of people jumping in and not understanding breeding, just like in the dog world, they didn't understand, and now you got this fake pit bull bully mix thingy walking around that they're charging.
I mean, there's a classic example of what happens when you take breeding too fucking far, mate. I mean, that thing is just an accident. I mean, it really is. My God, the look on its face 90% of the time is just shoot me.
We have a level of non-understanding by those who, like myself, have only been looking at seeds or even willing to watch the stuff until I moved to California on the internet. After I got arrested years ago, I wasn't even willing to look at stuff because I knew that, okay, they can track this, and this. So I stayed away from it. But I heard somebody say it the other day, if you got all these guys coming out, and they've only been a breeder for a year, 1 or 2 years, and they got all these strains on the market, we should know, you should tell everybody right away, hey, that's probably not the guy that you want to buy his stuff. Let him send it to you for free because he's not a breeder. I mean, unless you got years, I mean, maybe he's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can start saying that you know something and you've worked those lines. But 1 year, I'm like, I don't want none of those seeds of saying I can build a base on it. I can't build a base of. I don't think I can build a base from what I see on a program that you've only now worked for a year. But that guy over there, he's been working on that one for 5 and that one for 15. I'm going to get I'm going to get a better foundation if he's proven than this guy who might have great stuff. Your stuff that may be fire that you've been in for a year. But where's the foundation? Where's the proven standing foundation is what we need to see.
Yeah, what you need is the lineage. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that's the question. And okay, so I'm trying to get it. I can, there are a lot of public resources that are available that you can actually go to and start to try your best to piece the lineage together so that you have a really good understanding of the building block and material you're working with, if you're going to be doing it yourself. I can recommend
what I have now. I can go back. His go back a long way. Dynasty goes back a long way with his seeds. So if I did want to build something, I feel like it was my other industries and the animals. I could see something for a pattern that he's followed, and that's what I'm looking for. And
but it's more about I mean, the breeding thing is more about. I mean, if you think about the goats, I know you looked at goats at one point, so the big, the problem, which is actually the fortunate thing in like the plant world, is when it becomes really inbred, it doesn't fuck up as badly as the mammalian world does when you inbreed it too heavily. You can see when it's like, no, I should not breed with this thing anymore. Like, what the hell is this?
It's consistency.
So,
consistency in an animal. When you're breeding in an animal, you're looking at for consistency of the gene traits that came from the father and mother that you were trying to put together with
Yeah, it's the
That's the
same thing that you're
combination that
doing
you should
here.
always get. You should
It's
always
just
get
that
that from
it's,
the
you know,
same
you
every
can
year
see the
after year
fatal
after year after
mistakes a
year.
little bit more easier. I mean, the plant's a lot more forgiving. You don't see the fatal errors quite as badly.
Yeah, it doesn't. You only get one or two offspring instead of thousands of them. You can just send out there, and if they're wrong, if I send two goats out there and they weren't great, that next guy gonna go, well, he sold me shit, and he's not. He's gonna kill it.
Yeah.
Or even in the goat industry, because they've spent money, they'll pass it on. They'll
Mm.
pass it on instead of
Yeah.
killing it. And the good breeders, they see it come out and they say, "Oh, you're not breeding, you're eating." You know, I got to eat you. I can't breed you. Later on, we'll eat you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, so I see, you know, so this is something that we should be doing, you know, if on the back of a packet of seeds, it says, oh, out of this F1 selection, you'll be able to see 20 different phenotypes. Like, mate, it's not an F1. Okay. Just I think, you know, establish it. It's called a cross.
Yeah.
We as a consumer need to smarten up in our understanding of the language, the definitions being used. You know, this problem when it comes up, you know, regularly where the same, you know, F1 means something, it has a definition, and, you know, look into why are F1 seeds when you go and buy them more expensive than, you know, open pollinated or heirloom seeds and things like that, because a lot of effort goes into producing an F1. You know, it's not just crossing two plants. That isn't an F1. You might be lucky, really lucky, but it isn't an F1. Okay. So,
Right.
so understand, you know, it's having that understanding, and, you know, so if a breeder is trying to tell you and sell you seeds that are F1 and charge a premium for it, well then, okay, so if it is, what is the lineage? Show me the, you know, that this actually is what I'm buying.
Well, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of the ones I am growing here that you've seen. He calls them a version two. That's moose. The big round ones are the moose and lobster,
hmm,
version two. Now, when they're first coming up, you can see some differences, but they look alike, right? And then as they get bigger, you can see the differences, but they look alike. But the older they get and the more they get, you can definitely see the three phenos because I have all three, but you can see the similarities in the plant so
hmm,
closely. I mean, even the color of the leaves, the structure of the leaves in the three different phenos, even though they have different smells and a little different structure. But I can guarantee you some of that structure was different soil levels in pots, different watering styles, different lightings in the tent. The ones I
hmm,
just posted
hmm,
on my story that are in my bathroom, they're my fault. That pheno didn't grow fast enough because of the root rot and I had to replant. So they can't stay in the tent because they don't match the size. But in the thing that impresses me is that I can look at that plant and say, that's definitely all related. They're all the same. I can see it across the board.
hmm.
So I'm
I mean,
excited
I
because
quite like the idea of calling it a version two. I mean, I think that, you know, I think that is a more honest, I think just, you know, it's about honest labeling, you know, calling it a version two to say, yeah, this is the second version of this. I mean, I'm not going to claim it's anything other than that. Yeah,
if you go to his
that's
website,
being,
if you go to his lineage, it'll say like F when he describes it, it'll say like F1, F2, Holly hybrid, etc. And then he
mm,
goes
mm,
into an explanation because if you're I feel like it's more honesty to what you're saying is like, hey, unless you definitely know all this lineage, you can say it's an F1, maybe it's an F1, maybe it's an F2, maybe it's a polyhybrid, but I've worked it this long and this is what it does. Now you take it and make your selection,
yeah,
you know?
exactly. I mean,
So do
and then
I
we can get,
understand all that? No. But I
yeah,
understand somebody who tries to tell me more information and has been around for a while, probably going to be the more honest guy, you know, if he's not about hype. And there's a couple of them out there, you know, and I'm interested in what you guys are doing because the markers and everything just baffle me. I mean, because you know, I'm just an old country boy, you know. So
But I mean,
me,
it's
it's
interesting to see from just what's being done here. I mean, on the Operation Growth thing is like looking at, you know, what I think is really interesting is everybody. I mean, Doc didn't get it under the T5s. I noticed. I mean, his plants throughout have been like green and healthy the whole time. I do notice that. I mean, undergrounds yours were, certainly suffered a bit. It was getting used to various bits and pieces. And docks were yellow in the beginning, in the very beginning as well. And I know Lefty under that cannon, they've been as hungry as anything. Tyler, yours were hungry in the beginning, and that got sorted out. And I know that the Mystery Growers one is actually it's a different nutrient range that they're using, but same grow medium, similar conditions, and it's been absolutely fine the whole way through. So yeah, how do you? I would actually say that's, and we can spot. I think you can see similar. There's very little phenotypic difference between everybody's growth. I think as well. I think it's fairly consistent.
Well, how about this thought? I could go to 2 different farmers that I know that grow the same seed.
Credit to Rusted Jeff on that, by the way.
You know that?
Genetics.
Oh yeah. You're gonna have 2 different corns, and on 2 different farms, they're gonna be 2 separate. The same seed's gonna look two different ways based on the farmer, based on how well he takes care of his soil, based upon how well he fertilizes, based upon the time it was planted. I mean, that's the thing. So, are we ever gonna see it? I don't think you're ever gonna see, unless you got a computer. Everybody's got a computerized indoor grow. I mean, I think the cannabis plant, the corn doesn't so much change structure like a cannabis plant does. It just grows in different sizes. This guy got 6-foot corn, and this guy got 13-foot corn because how well they do it. So your plant in your garden, it's the same seed, same genotype or phenotype. From what I'm seeing in the years I've been smoking and growing indoor, outdoor, I just don't think your weed's ever gonna taste like mine.
No, but that comes down to, well, the interesting, I think that's a lot to do. I mean, there it comes, the interesting thing could be like around soil and stuff like that, because you get the terroir of the soil over time changes, and salt growers can probably replicate it a bit better because they can do the environment quite tight, and they can replicate the feeding rate, the fertigation regime. Excuse me. And that becomes, but if it's soil grown, that's way more difficult to replicate. I would have, that better flavor and taste. But yeah,
somebody ever gets the sun in a box, then you'll be okay.
Well, that's the thing about indoor growing
too.
Just to show you guys too, I mean, as far as environment and change in phenotypes, I got a cut from a guy and grew it out, and my cut is like real pineapple-y, kind of got a chocolate taste to it, smell, and his is like straight pine lemon. Same exact cut, but he grows with HPS and salt-based nutrients, and I'm LED and organic. So I mean, it's completely different profiles in the same exact cut.
And you'll change, and you can see, and then you'll change that again just by when you top and bend the plant. I found that out on my very first grows. Same plant, looked the same, grew the same, smelled the same size. But as soon as I took one of those branches and did this when I flipped it and didn't do it to the other, I had 2 different flavors at the end. I had 2 different plants and I was like, well, cool. I like that. I thought I was getting one of the same. I like 2 different ones. But so it's like, we do all these different things, and now you take one plant that you were buying from a guy in a seed, and he said it was going to taste this way, but then you bent it this way, but he bent it that way.
It'll be interesting, Pete, when Jeff gets a little bit more into growing out his plants under the LEDs and seeing any pheno differences in plants that he's had for a long time that he's running under HPS, and seeing the differences. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean,
I need to understand that separation of the genotype and the phenotype.
Well, I mean, as an example here,
it'd be a genotype for him in that circumstance. Yeah.
I mean, looking at this, like take Arise as an example from Irie Genetics. Okay, so this is not exactly a complete and thorough database of absolutely everything, but it's a very good resource. It's got about 6.5. Well, more than that. I think it's probably about 8,000 strains in it, with lineage where it's known. So like Arise, which is a popular one from, Irie Genetics, the parents of that is Golden Goat and Daybreaker. But there are 5 strains out there that contain a rye somewhere in their like immediate lineage: Mimosa, Prana, Scarlet Begonias, and Super Glue. Those have it in a very close to them. But if you take now Golden Goat and see that there are like 27 strains out there that have Golden Goat in them. Now, if you don't know that, I mean, it's Golden Goat, different cut versions as well from different people. I know it doesn't have the breeder name next to them. But if you took
Heck yeah.
Golden Soda and you didn't know that Golden Soda has, well, I mean, let's take.
Is this your database?
No, I just wrote a front end onto another database. So Golden Soda, nothing else has got Golden Soda in it. But for instance, if you got something called Golden Soda given to you, and then somebody else gave you something called Arise, you wouldn't think that they're related to each other. But they are, and they're actually not that distantly related. I mean, this is the problem. It's not too difficult. And if I start, you go down, all right, well, let's have a look at Huckleberry Soda and see if there's. Okay, so there's 7 that have that in it, so Sun Lounger, which you can't, I don't know what goes into Sun Lounger.
Same breeder though.
So Sweet Blue Lilac being crossed with a Rise, oddly enough. Well, yeah, it's just now you've got to worry about anything that's got Huckleberry Soda in it because you use this one. When you start to follow these lineage, eventually it stops. I mean, it does top out.
See, the thing they hear that they're not filling in is the male female.
Yes, parent A is female, parent B is male.
Oh, okay. That would make sense.
And you can go and look at this all up. Their website's pretty good. I just did this for myself because it's quicker and easier. But EU Seed Finder is a really good website. There we go. 17,000, nearly 18,000 varieties in the database.
Fuck.
I mean, come on, 18,000.
See, that's the problem.
What site's that?
EU, I'll put it in chat as well.
Okay.
It's en.seedfinder.eu.
Okay, thank you.
Word, 18.
And that's where your breeding studies begin. You're studying straight doggone pedigrees on that page.
Yeah.
Geez, we got 18,000 strains. How many countries are in the world? Not even 1,000, right?
See, and this is the problem. Now, yeah, again, I could go and hand you. What's cool is you can. I mean, the reason why I wrote the bits and pieces so you can start to drill it for like really distant ones that are actually related, and just to prove the point. The fact is we have these really weird names that don't give any clue as to what the hell is in there. I got something called key lime pie and something called Bert, farts or something, and oddly enough,
I've already come to the decision that if any seeds that I make that and end up passing on, they're going to be the initials of the 2 strains with a number system, or the names of those strains combined together, just as an explanation. I don't need it to have a cool name. I just want to be able to tell people what 2 I put together so they can do the same thing if they want to make it. See, if I don't pass it on, I just want to take the pictures and say, hey, see these 3 females? I put this male from this genetic that looked like this on these 3 females that look like this, and these are the effects I get. And you don't have to buy seeds from me, but why don't you go to the breeder who's been doing it for 26 years, make your own? Maybe, I mean, that's what I would like to do. If I find out that Scarlet Begonia is crossed with Jerry's little sister, whatever. They just came together because they're both dead stuff. Jerry and Scarlet Begonia.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to know, right? I want to know. But if those 2 make a medicine that made me feel like I just was going up for 3 hours and then I just wanted to go to sleep, then I can tell somebody that, and they can go buy those 2 strains and do from that breeder to make them themselves the cross.
Yeah, now
that breeder, instead of that breeder getting 15 million questions going, hey, can you cross this to this and this to this and this and this and this and this? The breeder says, oh man, I can only do so much. Why don't you buy 2 of mine and do that?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean the thing is this, because of the random nature of it at the moment is, they okay, the fact that they grew 100 plants, let's say they grew 100 plants and all in the same conditions, and they went, okay, that's the phenotype I want. So that's actually what they actually did at that point is they said, that's the genotype that I'm interested in. That's the base genetic material I'm after, because it's expressing the phenotype under these conditions that I'm looking for. And then I picked the male or female the same way. So now out of these 200 plants, I have selected 2 genotypes that I'm going to start breeding with. Now, unless you give me those 2 specific genotypes and I manage to cross them, unless I get those very 2 same ones to start with, I don't stand a chance of necessarily replicating what you did in the current setup, because everything is so unstable. It is so varied. If they were both dead stable lines, I have a really good, the percentage is way up there. Because essentially what you're producing when you're crossing those 2 really stable lines together is you're producing this F1 generation. So every time you cross these 2 parents, the offspring are the same. They come out they come out with the dominant features from both parents is what you're after. You've bred them to have these dominant, it may be a recessive gene, but it's these things that you've bred for them to express themselves. And
So the
now,
gene, I mean, so what's the phenotype then? I mean, is the phenotypes the smells, the flavors?
yes, the way it's shaped, the look, it's the physical
Structure.
expression it's the outward physical expression of the genotype. Your blue eyes is the phenotypic expression of your genes that make up the color of your eyes. Okay. The gene sequence for your eye color is the genotype. The color of your eyes that I actually see is the phenotype. And oddly enough, some people's eye color will change, just like you can when you adjust the temperature.
That's
But so
funny because mine
that's
changed.
your height
Mine
is
gets
an
bluer.
expression.
There you go.
All of your physical characteristics are a phenotypic expression of your genotype.
So altitude, salt level, contents, all those things change those things. Because see, for me, I see it like the change in the plant from you growing it there at one elevation, me here at another elevation. Because if I go to the ocean, which is 100 miles from me, my eyes go all the way blue after I'm there for the full day. They go to a brighter blue. They go to because they're more hazel and one's more blue than the other. But when I'm at the ocean, and that's a 3,000-foot elevation drop too, and I'm at the ocean, my eyes will go blue. So that's
That's
that's what I'm saying.
That's like when you drop the temperature at night, and to try and now not every plant when you drop the temperature at night does it go purple. It has to still have that in its genetic makeup. If it doesn't have it in its genetic makeup, you can do whatever the hell you like to it. It will never do it. Okay, it just won't happen. It still has to be something that's there because it is this expression of the genotype. So unless you have it in the genes, it's not going to be there.
But how do you identify the genotype?
Well, you're looking for the these days you would go and get it sequenced. That's how you identify the genotype. I mean, but what you do is you do it through visual inspection, looking at so like earlier on somebody mentioned the chemotype. So now if you take both of the visual, what you're seeing, and then you also do chemical analysis, so I can see, what is the terpenes that it's producing. So I can then combine both that physical phenotypic expression along with the chemo expression together, giving a really good idea that I'm playing with the same genotype here. Because so long as I do it consistently in the same conditions and I'm getting the same thing over and over and over again, the genotype is the same.
But the
We've got something that's
genotype is
consistent.
not physically identifiable by me, the grower, right?
It's only through only through the phenotype. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying if you have a field with 100 and you pick one out of that 100 and they're all grown the same, it's a different genotype that you're picking out of that field. I mean, if they all had the same genotype, because the conditions were identical, they'd all look the same. And that's what corn farmers do. They buy corn that grows the same.
So I'll give you an example. I had like 8 male. I think it was 8 males. I couldn't let them go all the way to pick a male, so I let them go till You know, maybe I think it was probably 3 or 4 weeks after they showed their sex, which I picked, and I just picked it by the structure, how fat, the way it grew, and the smell. That's all I could pick by. But I knew the strain. I knew what I had, right? So the one I really wanted grew so fast that I thought it was was no good because the leaves would stay good for a day and then just go like this and go away. But that wasn't that was my fault because it took up the mass of that cord so fast it wanted to go, and when it couldn't go, it just said, I'm not happy 1 day a week. And then, but as soon as I transplanted, well, to get to it, I got pollen off that. And the one of these strains, which is almost an exact identical look-alike, was the biggest in this tent, and I had to take it out because it was going to overgrow my area. So I chopped it the whole way down and just made it a 4-branch outcut, and I pollinated those two
So
together.
anything like crossed with that now is likely what you start to look for. Okay, so there has this, height thing. So it's been crossed with something that grows. So now you have to be on the lookout. Is that a trait you want? Do you want that trait? If you don't want it, off the progeny that come out, you've got to pick everything that stays short. The problem is you'll very quickly find out is that tall gene a dominant gene or a recessive gene? I mean, this is how you start to work out some of the basic phenotypes. So now when you take the offspring and you cross them amongst themselves, how many come up tall? What proportion come up tall? If the majority come up tall is a dominant gene. Okay, so now you know, all right, now if you take all the short ones, short's recessive, so we've got to be really careful now. So now you've got to cross all the short ones over and over and over and over again until every time you cross the short ones, all you get is short ones. You've got to totally remove the tall gene out of their line. And so that becomes the thing that makes it way more difficult. I just hit egg gorilla grow. Cool. Let's see, smashed cannabis. Yes, that would be 2 different sort of strains. I mean, if it's 2 phenos of the same strain, if they're in different, if it was the same strain in 2 different conditions and therefore expressing 2 phenos of, then it's the same one that you're crossing back with a male.
Well, see, I actually took that
if
was
I'm
the
understanding
thing.
that
So
question
I
properly.
guess I went backwards because, see, I took the male I really want, which I took out and I called out, but I ended up getting pollen and pollinating that one outside. It was the outlier. He was the outlier. He was the one that had a different leaf look than all the rest, that had a different the growth rate, and I just was like, I liked him. I thought it was better to pick for the outlier. I guess I was backwards.
Well, it depends what you're trying. Again, I mean, this is the thing
I
about
didn't
having.
know. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just playing around, so I didn't know what I'm doing.
So, but again, so this is that thing about why are you? Well, not you in particular, and just mean why you, the royal you, is wanting to cross a pond, and that's why I've been asking this of all the seed breeders that come on the show is why did you choose to do this? What was it that made you decide to create this strain? What were you trying to achieve? What was the goal? You picked these plants that started with it. Did you pick them for a reason? What was the traits in the parents that you were looking for, trying to bring through into this offspring? And then how have you worked that line to make sure that, those traits have become the dominant traits in that line? A few of them can answer those questions.
So for me, with this one plant, because it's the only one that got pollinated, I can say, and I have pictures, I can say these were the 2 biggest of the male and the female that grew the fastest, that had the wide structure, and are massive producers. You get massive producers out of it. But for me now, I just want to take those seeds off that plant and grow out my 99 that I can do just to see what I get. I don't want to pass them on. I just want to see what comes out so I can say, oh, I've seen that before, and I can pull that many of those out.
Well, now what you can do, I mean, so the fun thing now, as part of the mucking around, just to have to learn from it, is to take that prodigy and cross that, because you take the first, it's not an F1 that you've got, you're just taking the first generation that came from this cross. You can start, once you've worked that plant so that it stops showing any variation. So now you hit that stable line. So you've continued to select the traits that you were after, and you kept breeding it back on itself. It's really difficult with this particular type of plant because, you know, in the seeds, you're getting male and female plants. So you're not able to do like self-pollination per se. You know, yes, you can use colloidal silver and do stuff like that, but, you know, it's tricky to do that en masse. So that cross-pollination, you're constantly having to pick both males and females that you need to breed that give you this stable line. So you're almost trying to stabilize a male and female within that genotype. You know, you're trying to do both sides of this coin. In a lot of other ones, it's just one thing that you're trying to do, just one plant, because it self-pollinates. You know, so here you have to be even more careful.
Well, that means you have to take in, if I grow, that means you can't just pick out the ones you like if you're doing that. And if you grow out 99, you need to pick out.
Well, you've killed the male. I mean,
female.
you see, here's the problem. You know, did you take a cutting of the male and did you take a cut of the female? Because if you did that, what you now do with your first set of offspring,
no, I did that.
Them back with
actually, I didn't. I thought it better not to.
No, okay. So the
one
trick,
reason, I just
yeah. So this is what Dr. Yu's saying. So like what you would not. Okay, so out of the next one that you, so ideally what you do is the parents, you got to keep them alive. Again, another problem with an annual plant, it doesn't traditionally do this. So you've got to take a cut and keep it going so that you can take the offspring, cross them back with the original parents. And that really starts to show you where the dominant genes are starting to lie, and allows you to keep going back and trying to grab those dominant sources again and re-inject them back into the genetics so that you're constantly using that same stock. It's not varying. You're constantly got the same genetic material being reintroduced.
So the people out there who want to be breeders, you need to be doing what Peter's saying here. You know, instead of just maybe what I'm doing with one plant just so I can do it here. But if you want to go further with it, you need to have either, you got to keep the male. You got to keep the male.
You got to keep both. Yeah, you got to keep both sides.
It's best to keep both parents because
you really want to keep both.
You don't know which one is actually throwing which traits you're selecting for. So if you got both of them, you can always utilize that dominant one that you're selecting the traits from. Once you understand which one is passing those traits on, you can go back to that one and work on that side of the line.
Yeah, and then you can at some point, you know, like suddenly, you know, 5 generations down, you can cross back to the original parent to reintroduce some vigor back into it that might have suddenly been bred out. You know, you suddenly got all these other traits are still there, but that one bit that you know is in that parent, and you can now try and reintroduce it.
Now here's a question.
A little bit risky.
Say somebody's out there and they did what I just did, and I didn't want to really make anything out of that one. I just want to grow the initial batch of seeds to see what I get. So, but if you have if there's solid breeders out there, if you buy packs of seeds of the same thing from them, even though it's not coming off the same plant, I think you should be able to identify.
A solid breeder should give you the same. A solid breeder should be able to keep a line of seeds going for years, and they should never change. When they say limited run, it means accidental cross.
Or they found something, they decided they didn't want to do it more than one time, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Chrissy Boy in chat. Yeah, the males do carry the traits. It's half the genetic makeup. So yes, I mean, they play a very important role. There's structure bits, there's terpene profiles that can come from the male side. So
so I could actually get more versions of that right now. I mean, same version, plant them, and almost if I get a male, there's a good chance that I could get the same male. I could see that same male.
I mean, an example is
you should see the same male. You should see it again.
I mean, Jeff at Ari Genetics, Solomon, the Arise male that he uses, that's been the same male that's been going for a very long time. So, you know, he knows what that is bringing to the party.
Right.
It's basically like we should be doing plant breeding like horses and bulls and dogs. You take a prize stud male or a prize stud female, you build your line upon that, and then you
Mm.
know exactly what's coming within that progeny. You know exactly what
Right.
that plant is going to bring to the table every time.
At least in the
Winners-
first, that first like hit, you can see what you got a really good idea of what it's going to do.
Well, I have cuts of my inside male, the male I'm using for these inside plants. I have a couple cuts of the male going, and before I flip it, I'm hoping the one that wet brooded, but I'm taking a bunch of them so in case something does happen. Not saying I'm ever going to use it. I'm just going to, just in case I, pollinate these and I end up growing them out and going, holy crap, what did I just make here? This is amazing. Oh crap, I didn't keep the male. That would be terrible, I mean, especially.
Yeah, I mean, and the scary thing is when we're talking about it, we're talking about like really simple things. When you really get into the genetics, understand how many there are at play. And we talk in simple terms of like a dominant and a recessive. You get into co-dominance and all sorts of weird combinations of how they actually operate. So, that's why, your parents don't produce the same looking offspring every single time they have kids. Not everybody in your family looks the same, but they came from the same stock. There's always, every time you cross, there is randomness that gets introduced. So just bear that in mind. That those rules don't suddenly not apply in the world of plants. So that is one of those things.
Got kids attacking him. That's a good problem.
I just need to quickly shift to another room.
I'd rather have kids attacking me than somebody coming to kill me.
Yeah, I can feel the same though.
Well, my stepkids are grown and on the other side of the country, so.
I'm envious. I have a 2-year-old on my lap and an 8-month-old on my side.
Oh, well, bless you. 'Cause that's, hey,
brother, you just started. Oh my God. See, I'm an old head, so all mine are grown except for the 16-year-old. So yeah. Oh man.
planting them seeds still. That's a good thing, man. Keep planting them seeds.
Got to keep going.
Hey, man, kids are great. Kids are a blessing, man. They're really a blessing. They give you life. You give them life, and you get life from them by taking care of them. It's amazing. I love being around kids. You get that baby smell, just that kind of like soft skin. It just, if you haven't been around a kid for a while, because I don't see them a lot anymore. I don't get around kids much anymore. They just give you that, it's kind of like a shot of adrenaline.
Oh yeah.
Oh, look at that. Oh, bless your heart. Hello.
The youngest one's on the headphones listening to the conversation, just kind of bobbing her head.
Cool.
Nice.
She's like, who's that guy? It sounds like a redneck.
He is a redneck.
He is a redneck.
Nothing wrong with that.
Growing up, it was a derogatory thing. We used to go to Tennessee. That's where my grandmother lived, and a lot of my relatives and my brother be like, "Yeah, we're going hanging out with our stupid redneck cousin," which he loved, but just the way he said it, so it sounded derogatory. Then I grew up, and I went, "Hell, I'm a redneck." It wasn't. I'm a sophisticated redneck. I'm just like, I don't know. It's not a bad thing, that's for sure.
Not at all, man. Not at all.
I
So
guess
about
you
my
could classify some of the hillbilly redneck hippies. Go ahead.
What a
Pete.
cross.
I got a good buzz working. You keep going, man. I love the baby.
So just a quick question with breeding. If you were to take cuttings from the male and the female, like the father and the mother, would the genetic drift play a role if you're trying to keep the seed going?
Definitely, definitely. If you here's my
Peter,
understanding.
you
If you're
moved.
not keeping them in optimal health, you're gonna have a genetic drift. Once you start keeping the new thing is tissue culture. So if you can clean them up and keep them in optimal health, you don't have to worry about any type of drift. But you know, it depends. You know how growers do.
Yeah,
Not all
yeah.
of us are, up to par in our practices of taking cuts and things like that. We're not sterile, you know.
Sorry about that. A little bit of a technical hitch.
No worries, Pete. No worries.
Bum, 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 bum. So where were we at?
Did we lose Peter?
Briefly.
Oh, there you go.
Too many different Wi-Fi boosters and different bloody things around the house. That's a terrible frozen picture of me I see on the actual live YouTube. Dear
See,
God.
there's the downside. Somebody can go back and watch it, you know.
Oh,
You're
But
getting your
I
Chad
am,
on in that picture, Pete.
oh my goodness.
I'm hoping somebody who hadn't seen me or I met years ago somewhere around the world watches this someday and says, I remember that guy. I got to get a hold of him because there's some people I've met and smoked with, done things with that, you just think maybe I'll never run into them again, but now maybe they'll see something and get a hold of you. That would be my hope, I guess.
Yeah.
Look, he looks like an idiot. Oh, he's still an idiot.
I mean, it's smash cannabis day, and not keeping male plant want to collect the seeds from the cross. You say now this is one again where we had when we had the Light Addict on, this came up like how do you do a breeding program with, let's say, like a small number with a small plant count using grafting. You could have one plant that has 3 different, 4 different males on it, 4, 5 different females on it, all on one rootstock. So technically one plant that has quite a nice selection of genetics that you can pick from. That
That's
would,
amazing.
to
That
me,
doesn't
would be an
change
interesting solution to, no.
Oh yeah, I got a female here. I'd like to have. I mean, you see some of these females, and you're like, oh, I know some different strains I'd like to put on you right now. But that doesn't change anything in the base of that plant. I mean, on the inside of the genetics, doing that.
No, not to the best. I mean, it's common practice in the fruit world. I mean, apple trees are traditionally grown on other rootstock, and people do splice, cannabis plants all the time. Actually, it's not an uncommon practice. You see guys doing well, that's what Light Addict actually did. He had, was it Snoops? For Snoop's Premium, he did the word Snoops with the apostrophe as well, which is all one plant, but it was like 8 different strains, all grown on one plant. And there, what he did was he picked 8 different phenotypic expressions, but looking at, there was 8 different genotypes picked specifically for their phenotypic expression. So the colors, all of them were a different color. They all had slightly different structure, et cetera, et cetera. So that's selectively picking on that front. I think actually you posted up a little thing a second ago, wasn't it? Where did it go? Where's chat all of a sudden? What was it? Oh, it's gone because I had to rejoin. Bollocks. But
Was it the phenotype?
yeah, that was like what the definition is, because it's actually
That was straight from the horticulture book from Jorge Cervantes. He pretty much says you're here. Let me pull the page. Give me a second.
So you can can you take a female stalk and graft all different types of branches to her?
yeah, or a male, doesn't really matter.
That's interesting. Oh wow.
Yeah,
Same
I
thing
mean,
we do in the
if you're in a
tomato
small
world.
plant count, that really opens it up.
Yeah,
Say
like
again.
Well, I
when you
just
in
think
the
it's
tomato world,
cool.
then like in greenhouse tomatoes, a lot of them use a certain type of root stock because it's if you're up in the above the 30, what is it, the 39 or the 40, they have a problem with root rot. So it's a certain stock they brought in from overseas that does well. So they just graft tomatoes on top of that.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, so I guess that's why some tomatoes are probably more invasive than others, or better at repropagating. Because of you see some that have what people call production stalks. I guess that would be a production stalk, because you'll get a stalk that'll come up and it'll be just grow like the tomato they said it was going to be, and like it'll be a terminating, but you'll get one seed or something in that pack or a fall off that from the next time around, and it just goes crazy. It doesn't grow like the last one. It's like somebody told me that. I don't know the tomato business, but is that true? Is that a production line? Is that what that is?
I don't know.
They have different types of production lines, but really what it is like like down south you got the southern blight, up north you have a similar thing. So it's a certain, most tomatoes that are like beefsteaks or the vining tomatoes, they don't do good up north above the 40. So when they grow those, they actually graft them onto a different stalk because it's like a virus that they get. It's a root pathogen they get.
Yeah.
Mm. And like the apple tree that we've got in our garden, when that was bought, you actually buy it based on the rootstock that it's grafted to as to how big it's going to get. Because apple trees, their actual roots are pretty lame. They're not oddly, there's better rootstock for apple trees. So if you go to your nursery and go and buy an apple tree, you tend to have a look at what rootstock, because it'll go out to like 6 feet wide by 9 feet tall, or this rootstock will only support up to 5 feet, 3 feet wide, sort of thing.
I got this wild thing in my head where I heard somebody talking about hops the other day, and hops are in the same, what is it, the same class or of as cannabis. I was like, and I just had this dream. You get those crazy things like car running on water. It's like, oh wow, I wonder if you could put a cannabis branch on a hop spine.
Yeah, one way to find out. Yeah, I mean, I Grow Big SD on chat saying that he's grafted citrus and figs. It's pretty easy. Yeah. We used to see it.
I just want the plant to be turned into a vine and grow up the whole telephone pole beside my house.
Yeah, I used to see like the orange lemon tree, where it was a lemon tree grafted to orange, whatever. So you have both, or a lemon and lime tree.
Nice.
You can do some weird ones.
Okay, but they have a base. Going back to what you started with, there's a base they can go back to much easier with lemon trees, right?
There's a lot of different lemon trees.
Yeah.
But then again, it's a more established. Lemon trees haven't been bred to get people mashed. If lemons got you high, there would be a lot of different lemon trees out there.
Well, I don't know. They get pretty high when you mix them with a gin or vodka.
Yeah. But if it by itself was getting you mashed up, you'd have the way lemon turds.
That's true. I mean, everybody, that the whole industry breeds, and it's fallen into that strongest of everything. Like who's got the biggest burger at the fast food restaurant? Like we went to that bigger thing in the fast foods, and that's what it is in cannabis. And I'm a firm believer that you don't have to have that high THC to get high, to get what you need, because there's some great weed out there. It's 12%, 14%, 18%. That it's because it has a full spectrum of other stuff, and that's all I see the drive for. The guys who, if I go to the hydro store here, they just want, and these guys that own a hydro store, all they want is something to get you high. What is the strongest to get you high? That's all they care about.
Well, that's prohibition. Doing alcohol prohibition. Why am I going to give you money for a beer? Give me a bottle of like hard liquor. I just want the stuff that's going to get me as fucked up as possible, and I want to get as much bang for my buck. So that's why it's been.
So they're in a legal market, still having a mindset of the old mindset.
Well, the catch is, this is the catch with how the strains have been bred, because we're talking, what there's a big difference between THC and like CBD. CBD has to be bred. The maximum like CBD content that they will put, like, that's bred into the line. You can't. CBD isn't a stress response. THC is a stress response, so that's why the THC levels can fluctuate. But your CBD will max out. It won't go any higher. It just can't do it. You have to breed it over and over and over again to sort of increase the amount of CBD that it's a very selective breeding program.
You said the THC.
Yeah, well, THC, which is we're the recreational, or the prohibition. Let's get as fucked up as we can. That's the bit that everybody was after.
So is that the reason the more people do more topping, trying to get more stress to get higher?
No, the topping is just to create more bud sites, but
that doesn't do the same. I mean, is it
yeah,
also
any kind of it's the problem, as Underground knows. It's a problem all hemp farmers face. If those things get too stressed, that you'll go up to above 0.3% THC. You've now got a hot crop, and it's illegal.
Yeah, especially depending on your
bump its CBD up.
Especially depending on the breeders. Now, it's really genetic, but with the lines being so everywhere, you got to watch like the soil type that you get, that because certain plants just don't respond well with certain soils, and they'll go. Your bite PBD into it, you can actually breed the THC out of a plant, but you got to be using tracers or markers or something like that, working with someone that has a lab to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's happened in the cannabis world, of course, is that it's been the CBD is being bred out because it's much easier to breed that kind of out of it, because people wanted to get high, they didn't want to get level. And now what we're more interested in is like now trying to get the CBD back into the plant is really difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. And that's the position we now find ourselves in. When they say 1-to-1, you might wind up with a lot more THC and a lot less CBD in that ratio. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So if a hemp farmer just wants to put it in the field and try to stress it as little as possible.
Yeah, they don't want to stress the plant. But that is like a really interesting difference between where you can really use the environment to try and get it to express that higher THC.
I guess,
that's why I can grow the same strain and stress one and not the other and get like quite different THC results. That's
why I got the different phenos or different flavors and structure and everything out of those two plants when I first grow them. It was just because of stress, the difference in the stress. That's amazing, man. That's just so crazy. I mean, if I did do that to strawberry, and if I grow the strawberry up or I grow it out, it doesn't matter. It still tastes the same.
But grow that same strawberry in completely different conditions, and it'll taste completely different. I give it different feed, I give it different lighting. I grow it at sea level.
I tell the story that I grew tomato plants in this mix I'm growing in the M3, and I'm telling you what, the tomatoes, you put them in your mouth and they pop. I mean, they're like, that's like, wow, I've never tasted tomato with this much flavor. I'm like, what in the world did I just eat? It was like popping in my mouth. It just blew up in the sense of the flavors were so strong, and had a little bit of like peppery, I was like, that's crazy. I'm like, so what Clackamas is talking about when he moved, the soil is so important, so
yeah, and that
so everything changes it. So that's how do you regulate that? I mean, how do two farmers that want it, I guess, does it all go back to a base and controlled by extraction? Because if you got a farmer on B side of a mountain and the other side on the south side and one's on the north side, and they grow the same crop, but it comes out too different, but they're growing for the same
Yeah.
company who's going to put their stuff into a product. How does that work?
Well, the interesting thing is at that big commercial scale. So I mean, okay, it is all about, I guess, scale. If you just to use it as a proxy, something like the corn market. Okay, now and doing the proxy with the artisan small growers who are growing like small batch cannabis or hemp or whatever the case may be, but they're doing it on a small scale. And at that point, you're kind of expecting from them it'll be consistent, but they're only doing, and it's only them that's doing it. You're going to one specific place to get it, and then I'm using it in my bakery or something. There's one particular, and I'm producing artisan bread. But when I am I don't know what's Costco or something like that in the States, like a big supermarket chain, and I'm producing 10 million loaves of bread every single day. I don't buy corn based on it all being the same. I buy corn that meets this requirement. It's this quality. So what I'm actually, when I'm buying, let's say hemp at that mass scale, what I'm buying is it meets this much fiber per ton, this much seed per ton. It just meets certain requirements. It doesn't all have to be exactly the same. Because
That
when they
makes
then blend it all together, it's homogeneous. They're not interested in isolating individual ones out, if I'm making sense. They just
Yep.
blend it all together at the end anyway, because they need consistency, and consistency is difficult. Because if you grow it in two different locations, it ain't going to be the same. So if I blend it all together, at least the blend is consistently the same.
I ask a question like that, but I'm of the person who doesn't really like the commercial farm anymore. Even though
Yeah, I
I
mean,
got a
each
lot of
individual
things.
commercial farm is fine. It's, each
Yeah, they're
farm.
going to be independent. I'm just saying that when you got craft, that's the difference between craft and commercial. I know there's a need for the commercial, but man, I want everybody to grow tomatoes at home. I want everybody to grow cucumbers or whatever they want to eat at home, because you never know when you can't get it. You never know, you're in Syria and one day you're getting bombed and the next day you're able to grow for the next 6 months. You got peace. That's a hell of a way to live, but I mean, those people don't have grocery stores to go to. So, I mean,
And
I'm
there will
just thinking,
be.
the plant growing stuff takes you back to taking care of yourself, and some people don't know how to take care of themselves. And I can say for myself that a lot of things I did well, but I didn't always do well. But growing an individual plant like this has helped me do some things that I wasn't good at much better because I've had to focus. So maybe there's some people out there that we treat certain ways, and I know I changed the subject, but to that have them grow, like who is it? There's the one guy there's a lot of people who help veterans grow, because not only does the plant medicine, but the actual interaction with taking care of something, because they can't do a lot of other things to take care of stuff. They're able to take care of themselves, that and the plant, which gives them something to take care of and gives them something to look forward to. And it's creating their own, and by whoever it is. I told my mom, I said, you need to grow. I said, I'll get you a hemp seed. She said, I can't grow that here in Tennessee. It's not legal. I said, hemp's legal everywhere. I said, what flavor do you want to smell? I said, I bet I can. You don't even have to use it. I said, just put it on the back porch, let it grow up, and I'll find one like puts a smell off that you like outside. She's, oh, I couldn't do that. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm just like, but that's the thing, Granny could be growing her hemp,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
teach everybody to grow. But on the commercial side, I don't want to see it to go back to being like the corn industry. That's why
Well, that's always going to exist. I mean, as you said, you've got the people that want to grow their own tomatoes and appreciate the flavor difference and all that you get from growing it yourself. I mean, growing your own tomato is way more, literally pound for pound. Growing your own tomatoes is way more than going to the supermarket and buying a pound of tomatoes. But there's a lot more satisfaction. There's a lot more quality at the end of the day. But you've got a lot of people who just can't be asked and just want to go to the supermarket and buy it. And fine, that market will always exist. And in fact, the existence of that market drives innovation in the other markets. And often those big ag companies that implement stuff, they have the deep pockets to fund the research into the technology, into the new ways of doing things, the new LED lighting, they're the ones paying for the research, and we, at the end of the day, eventually benefit from it. Your average driving car benefits from Formula One. I mean, so much of what's in your car,
Yeah.
safety wise and performance, is directly attributed to what these guys do at insane paces around a Formula One track.
I agree.
So that's where there is the place for everything, and it is that tomato law, the same way that you're allowed to, you can grow tomatoes at home, and that's really what that right to grow, no matter what it is. Interestingly enough, that's kind of the law in South Africa.
Well, then somehow it needs to be implemented into the educational system in the cities about how food is produced more, so they have more of a relationship with the stuff they're not getting a relationship with because somebody else is producing it. Because I heard somebody the other day said until he was in his 20s or 30s, he said he had never knew there was such thing as an over easy egg.
Yeah,
I'm like,
you see now, funnily enough,
what? He's like, yeah, I only thought there was two ways you can eat an egg: scrambled or boiled.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by people sort of, and then this is really a tarnished, like large brush. That's a sweeping statement. So contextually, for future reference.
He's a nice person, so whatever he's saying, don't be offended by it.
But you often, when I've traveled a lot, my kids have traveled a lot. My kids are essentially kids of immigrant parents. They've got a broad palette, and it's really interesting that you do find like indigenous population, local population, especially if they don't do a lot of international travel, they have a very limited palettes. And they don't want to try and adventure out of it. I always say if you want to experience cuisine and different things, make friends with immigrants, especially first-gen immigrants, or the kids of first-gen immigrants, because when they first arrived in the country, a lot of their native cuisine is not available in the supermarket pre-packed. So they've got all the spices and everything to make food from back home. So if you go into an immigrant's house and open up the spice rack, it's just full of shit. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I was just saying that's definitely a noticeable thing. Talking about different ways of eating stuff and not knowing about it. Yeah, it's get out there, travel around, see the world.
That's that culture, it's passing the culture of your generation before you, and a lot of Americans who came. Well, from what I see, a lot, and I know from my family, they just left everything behind. They stopped speaking the native language altogether, and some of them they pass it on, like the Latino culture. They try to pass on as much as they can the speaking part of especially like Puerto Ricans. They're really big on it, making sure that the kids, and Russians too, Russians, Ukrainians, stuff like that, maybe other countries are too. They make sure even if they come here, they still learn their native language from the other country first.
Yeah, that'll last for like maybe 1-2 generations, and then it stops. It then dies out, and they can remember the swear words.
Oh, that's why they teach me those first. That's the first thing I always learn.
I mean, we've had friends of the kids come around, and you offer them like a baked potato with, beans and baked potato. I mean, how more like plain and simple can you get? Oh no, I've never had a baked potato. Okay, have you had chips before? Yeah. All right, so this is the chip before it's cut up. Yeah, no, I don't think I like it. But you like potato, yeah, because you like potato chips. Yeah, but I'm not gonna like that. It's like, what the fuck? Then you arrive like in Vietnam with like our kids. I did think this is going to be interesting. They're either going to be really thin after 2 weeks, or they're going to have to learn this the hard way. And
I had a friend who said he went to Jamaica back in the 80s, and I had never been to Jamaica yet at that point. And he was like, I went down there on a missions trip. He said, I'm glad I took peanut butter. He said, because I couldn't eat any of their food. And I was like, really? I was like, oh, I would never want to go there. And then I went there on vacation because I wanted to go smoke weed. And, Jamaica was the place to go on vacation if you lived on the East Coast.
Mm.
So in 99, I went for the first time. And I was like, what are you talking about? You couldn't eat their food. I'm like, yeah, oh my word. I was like, no, give me their food. I don't leave the peanut butter at home. So it's raising what people are willing to adapt to and to willing to accept that other people have already accepted as tasting good. It's not shutting themselves down, not shutting their palate down. Like Fumidor, he's got a serious palate, and I don't have a palate like that. I don't. But unless you get your kids out into into Vietnam, they're either going to eat or they're not.
Yeah. And
Sooner or later, they started eating, right?
yeah, Vietnamese cuisine. It is some of the best food I've ever eaten anywhere, hands down. Street food wise, it's probably got the best street food scene going. Cheers, Tyler. Catch you
Agree.
later, bud. But don't ask what it is. Just ask what it's for. Do not get into the gory details of what you're actually eating, because you're not going to be. You'll be amazed they can make it taste that good.
They're doing.
My God.
Yeah, most of those places are doing the best that they can as they would for their own self to eat it. So that's what you're accepting, and I don't have a problem with that. I mean, of course, I'm not going to go to Mexico and drink the water, but
Yeah, but I'm going to drink the tequila.
I think, yeah, it's a good encourage people. I encourage people try that food that your buddy's trying that you're like, no, I can't. There's no way I can't get past it. Just do it, because if you don't, you won't ever experience the thing. You got to push past that fear. We I don't know. Everybody's comfortable now in these boxes in their homes, and even before this happened, people were comfortable, getting more comfortable. I see a large, not everybody. There's some of us who don't. They're getting the generation getting more comfortable just sitting always glued to this thing in the front of their face. So they're not experiencing life outside of that. They don't get to see. They're not seeing everybody's facial expressions. Now he doesn't only get two types of eggs. Now he doesn't even see the guy beside him eating the two different eggs that he could be eating. So it's like we have to almost make sure we're getting our kids, like you're doing. That's great, man. Taking your kids. My parents took me to England when in between 8th and ninth grade. We got passport in 2 days. It came up right away. My mom was like, you want to go to England? Dad asked, we want to go to England. We're going to be there for a month. And I was like, really? Yeah, let's go.
Nice.
Got there, and it was like, I was in England, spent a bunch of time in bed and breakfast in London, and then in Bath, and then in Edinburgh, and then made a trip to France for a day on the ferry. And as an eight between 8th and ninth grade, as a kid that age, that was a huge impact on me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I went to Spain 3 years later, and seeing the street people with no eyes and no legs and all this stuff, and going, well, they've never seen this at home. And
see, it's one of those interesting things about United States is it's essentially like Europe or the European Union, except all of you guys speak pretty much the same language. You do have a mixture of languages in the United States, but you kind of all just, each state has its own state law, and then you also got federal law, which is no different to each country having its own law, and then you've also got the European law that's kind of overarching. But the difference is that the culture in the US is fairly homogenous. There's no like really massive differences in language, across from when I go from one state to the next, does the language and the law and everything change? Do you know what I mean? It's it's not quite as drastic as that, along with not currency anymore. And so I think there's a lot to be said for traveling around America, but it doesn't give that. You forget how fortunate you are when you live in this part of the world, like in the UK. I can jump on a train and be in France and be, cafe culture. Slightly less of that these days, but you know what I mean. It's like
Sadly, Peter, Sadly, Peter, I'm seeing the United States now looking like a lot of the places I went when I was younger.
Yeah, well, I mean,
You know, we
they're
got.
all quite switched on. I mean, Europe is, really
I
drive
mean,
to
you wouldn't
Canada.
see the people on the streets. You know, there was homeless people. You know, in 1981 when I went to
Mm.
England, homeless people in America, but now that's man, I'm telling you, it looks a lot like it did when I went to Spain, and you saw people sitting around with no eyes and no body parts, just starting to look like that now. And I'm like, I don't, I feel bad for all of them because there's got to be a way to help them. But I mean, I think part of it is comes down to what we're saying is that we don't teach people a full spectrum of living. So if they don't get a full spectrum of living, it's almost like if you had to move into the city and you didn't live there and you lived in the country all the time, man, that takes a while to get used to.
Yeah. I mean, hey, look, I mean, England is full of that as well. I mean, there's lots of people in England who, and once you've traveled a lot and done a lot of traveling, you're always amazed by people who haven't done it. Who, like, I mean, I say like haven't done it, you can go. England's tiny. Hey? I can drive from one side of the country to the other along the longest part of it in a day, and still probably do it before, from sunrise to sunset, make it in a day kind of thing. So it's very small, but there'll be people who like never been to London or, you know, haven't been out of their village. And there are parts of this country where if you moved to the village when you were 2 years old and you're now 78, you're still not local because you were not born in the village. You know, you're still
Hey,
looked at as being the
I lived
outsider.
on, I lived on, and it's true. I mean, some people are just there's an age group, but so I guess now we have it into a community on the internet. But when I lived in Puerto Rico in 2008, um, there's people on some of those places. Well, of course, there's Puerto Ricans that's never been to the United States, the mainland, but Vieques or Vieque, however you want to pronounce it, which is real close to the British Virgin Islands and the U.S. Virgin Islands. It there's people that island is 4 miles wide and 21 miles long at the tips in the widest places, and there's people who are in their 70s and 80s and 90s who've never been off that island. 4 miles, and they only had access to half that island from 40 something to 2000 and something when they stopped the bombing because half the island was shut down because it was a bombing range.
Mm, mm.
So can you imagine that? I can't imagine that. I can't imagine being right where I'm at right now and just staying here for the next 50 years and never leaving within 4 miles or 20 miles. That's kind of strange. Well, I guess
Yeah, and I mean
before
this
cars,
whole
it wasn't no big deal.
yeah, it was. I was having this chat earlier, and actually, when you look at kind of, I mean, it's probably I don't know about it, like in the States, we've looked at like the general concept that we're realizing that a high density living is not such a great idea, and
No.
you're already looking at city organizations. We're talking about big companies who everything is about the head office, high rise building, all 5,000 staff in a 50-story building kind of thing in the center of town. That's a thing of the past. They don't want their people going. I mean, they're actively kind of going, no, you don't have to come back because they're all shit scared of getting sued. Nobody sues a company with no money. You sue big corporates because they've got lots of money in deep pockets.
Okay, so all these cities have been
So
getting
what's happening? What's going to happen?
gentrification. Just get thrown out the window.
Well, no. So what's going to happen is you're going to have these huge buildings in the center of the city, which is this massive infrastructure, and nobody wants to occupy it. Convert that into vertical farming, because a challenge that vertical farming actually has,
Awesome.
because these buildings are all going to stand empty otherwise. Your landlord's not going to rent it to anyone because nobody wants to fucking go into it. So just convert it into high
I like the way you're
density
thinking.
farming. It's few people, high turnover, and it's already got a good infrastructure network feeding it, so you can get food out of it out into the suburbs and into the other areas really quickly. And it's all about being more self-sufficient and kind of bring the source of your food supply closer to you.
Wow, you know how many empty warehouses there are sitting out here in the desert? The
The
only
catch with
thing
a
you would need,
warehouse is the
no,
reason why a vertical farm in a high-rise building works is each floor, you've got this infrastructure where each floor is physically, these physical separations, and they've got in a big warehouse it's 500 shelves high, and it introduces all sorts of complex problems about heat management and how do I get to the shelf on the 500, the one at the very, very, very top.
no, I'm
If I
just
do it
saying,
in a
I was
high-rise
thinking more
building, I can
about,
just stand there and get it. Do you know what I
no, I
mean?
was
So,
thinking more about these one-story warehouses and strip malls we have everywhere
this,
that are still good, but
yeah.
they just need the ceiling taken out and just the wall structure left, and then they could still be used.
No. Keep the ceilings in, put in solar panels, fucking LED light the shit out of it, and keep it going. Don't open it up to the elements. Keep it sealed from the elements. But just convert these.
Or just put a glass ceiling on it.
Yeah, or put a glass ceiling on it. Take advantage of all the free sunlight.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Especially in the desert here, I saw somebody do so anywhere you can do it, but they had 4 containers, and they painted the containers white, and the containers were in a box shape, and they were all white, and he just put a top on it, a roof, a top on it. So it was like, that's what I'm doing out here in the desert to try to get privacy.
You get these really cool sun light lamps. It's like this hole in the ceiling basically, and it bounces the sunlight in, and then it disperses it out, and it gives this really good natural light.
Sun tube.
Sun tubes, yeah, and some of them are incredibly efficient in what they're doing. That would be the way to do it. I mean, I genuinely say you still want a roof, because for commercial production, controlling the
Well, you
elements
should
is what
see
you're after.
I posted a picture earlier on my story, and it's the ones I pulled out, and they're sitting in the bathroom. One's in the shower, but I have 3 skylights. I have 3 skylights in my bathroom, and 2 of them open up, so it's just mesh. So it's like, well, I'm just good. That's my overflow room now. My bathroom. I said the women have basically taken over the bathroom again.
Yeah.
So I got 3 skylights. So I'm growing through. I got 3 plants in there, plus my clones in my bathroom.
Yeah.
I love it. So much light.
Yeah.
White walls and 1 skylight. It's amazing what you get.
Yeah, and look, you hear everybody talk about like the doom and gloom of this whole scenario that we've, unfortunately found ourselves in. And I personally think there's so much opportunity that has presented itself, like ridiculous amounts. One door shut and thousands suddenly open.
I like that vertical farming idea,
And it's
especially in
annoying.
those glass buildings.
Yeah, and it applies to all sorts of things, not just that. You go, okay, so the city worker who liked to buy his artisanal coffee because he doesn't want to buy a Starbucks coffee, still wants his artisanal coffee. He's just not coming into the office anymore. So where do these people all live? All right, well, let's set up a little operation near to where they all live, and have little vans that go around and still deliver artisanal coffee to these people who are no longer paying to commute into the office. So they've got some extra wonga in the pockets. They can pay a slightly inflated price still, or even, well, in fact, your costs have come down because you're not paying, middle of New York bloody rental. So instead of charging $10 for a coffee, not that I know you charge $10, which is a nice round number, you can charge $7 for a coffee.
I've had a good chuckle at some of this, because for years, a lot of these people were saying, hey, why don't you let us work from home and we'll save money? You don't have to pay all this stuff in here. And now they've been forced to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I know when I was working in the city still, that my desk space all in, all the fees, my salary, insurance, the whole shebang, the whole thing was probably close to 25,000 pounds a month is probably what they were paying.
Wow.
And that's the rent must have been astronomical. It was in the middle of the financial district, 40th floor, top of the building. It's like, holy shit, there's not cheap rental,
What
And for the
square foot?
companies, it's
Probably
all about
$100 square foot.
prestige. Yeah, easily. Very easily.
But now it can be used for vertical farming. So are people already working on that? Is there some places over there already?
No, I don't think anybody's thought of it yet. I mean, I was just sort of struck me the other day as like, man, that's just screaming out. Again, you see, this is to me, I go, there's the opportunity. Somebody needs to jump on it.
Well, there's a lot of opportunities with products like that people are starting to, and I've seen for years, like the containers, which I mentioned. Containers have so many because they only get used one time. All the Chinese containers that get shipped to the United States do not go back to China.
Mm.
And they're just sitting there stacking up, and then you can buy them. If you can go buy them, you can buy them for $500 or $1,000 a piece, and they resell them for two. So you can buy them right from the yard and have them shipped. But the thing about it is, London, I know there's places in and around London that they have built huge apartment complexes out of them by stacking them by high. But for the growing, oh my gosh, they already have refrigeration. They're already insulated walls on a lot of trailers. They're just a product that's already been made that can be turned into a nice looking building, and you don't even know it's metal anymore.
I know a few people who've done, I know a couple of companies who do container growth for like strawberries and fully kitted out things. Yeah, and I like your enthusiasm, bud.
Well,
Go and shake
in
down the
Puerto
couch.
Rico, there's a
See if I
British
got some
guy.
spare
There's a
cash.
British guy that has there's a British guy that built a place, a bar store complex in the south side of Vieques while he was living on his sailboat, and he did it in containers and had everything shipped in on the containers because the container is not based upon the weight; it's based upon the container. Typically, when they were shipping them then, so it didn't matter if it was empty or full; it cost the same to ship it in. So you ship in your building problem. And what in a hurricane area, you take a container and you set it up on top of pillars that go into the ground, and they bring angle iron or iron out that's been set into the concrete, so now it won't blow away. So now you have a building or a house. So in a tornado area too, somebody who has a tornado shed, you don't necessarily have to dig a hole anymore. You can just take a container, stick it on top of the ground, and have it welded into the ground.
In England, they've found a few rather creative underground cannabis grows done that way. Containers. Containers.
When you can buy a building like that you're going to put in your backyard, that's 20 by 8, right, or 20 by 9, 110 by or 40 foot. You can buy the 20-foot long ones, and then you can cover it with a nice siding. You could put two of them side by side and put a roof on the top.
Oh no, they've dropped these things underground, 3 to 6 feet underground. Hides any giving traits hides any heat signature.
That's what I would do out here.
When you see out in the desert, you're doing it to keep it cool.
Yeah.
When you get down deep enough, things stay the same.
Well, the winter time too, because when they build I saw a greenhouse and it's specifically designed for heavy flow water areas like that and heavy wind. And there's always a wall, and it's sunk in the ground. There's a wall around the outside of the structure to maintain those temperatures. And sinking that in the ground would be great because you would get that base consistent temperature once you pass that frost line. Wow, that's a good idea. And metal's a great conduit too for that. Wow, that's interesting. I bet there's some buried out here underground.
Oh yeah. Like in Spain,
we have tons of
cave houses still. Where they dig into the side of the mountain, in the southern parts of Spain where it gets insanely hot. Up in the main area, you can actually still buy cave houses. That was always I thought that was quite a cool concept. You want another room? Here's a spoon. Go dig another room.
I like it because it's a product that's already been built into a structure that can be reused, and they're just sitting around, and somebody can And a lot of people don't know about it. You know, they just think, oh, I couldn't have one of those. Like my mother, I take somebody like my mother. She's like, oh, I never have one of those sitting in my yard. That's an eyesore. And then they go away for a day, and you come back and you framed it on wood on the outside, and covered it with siding, and they'd be like, wait, what's that? Yeah, it's the same building, and you just can't see it. It's like that food you didn't want to eat until you get past the looking at it and just taste it.
Yeah. So how long have you been growing for then?
Indoors, this I'm coming up on. I didn't start until November 19th. I planted my first seed. Well, that's not true. Every now and then I would put bag seeds um, and plant. But I planted my first plants when I was about 11 or 12. And so I got suspended from school in sixth grade because for a bag of seeds. I fell in love with my brothers turned me on to weed, but in between fifth and sixth grade, probably not a good age to start. And it set me on a different path than they went. But it was definitely fit into who I was. And yeah, so I had a big bag of seeds I stole from my brother out of his sock drawer. And I was just showing off, you know, just being cool in sixth grade, and got suspended. And that's a long story. But then I went from there, and then I would take and put them outside, and I was ignorant enough as a kid. I didn't know nothing about buds. We just smoked the leaves off.
I
Didn't
think
even
the
know.
first, I just remember, man, first weed I smoked. Fuck. I mean, it was definitely back in South Africa. It was in Durban, and it was probably, if I recall, like probably from the gardener. I managed to get some. I figured out where he was drying it at the bottom of the garden, kind of thing. Okay, cool. I see what's underneath this newspaper, and like, oh, what are we gonna do? And okay, oh yeah, I'm sure I've seen them rolling it up in like, you know, actually, I think we rolled it up in Bible paper. It was the thinnest sort of like paper we could find. My friend and I mean, we must have been about, let me try and think. It's been about 12 or 13. Yeah, getting blazed. And then my mom pulling up and saying, hey, what are you two up to? Because we were out walking around. And she was like, hey, what are you guys up to? Like, fuck.
Yeah, well,
Stay as far away from the car as possible. It's like, yeah, no, we're fine. No, we'll walk home. It's fine. It's fine.
I was guilty of spending all my time in seventh grade shop class making bowls on the lathe. Never had to use a Bible paper. It was always a corn cob. You grab a corn cob and hollow it out, and you know, living up in the country, you know, or just whatever. There was somebody had a bowl. So first thing I smoked was from my brothers. It would have been out of a bowl, Colombian. It was It was good Colombian. It wasn't the stuff that you hear people talk about, the crab stuff back in the late '70s. It was good stuff. And you know, didn't know they put it in a bowl, and I liked it. You know, and so my mom would say, "Why that summer?" My mom was always like, "Why does your brother always come home and go right to sleep?"
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
he's just
I mean,
tired, Mom. You know, we're out. We came from we've been out swimming all day. He's just tired. Well, they didn't say he had three 8-ounce Budweisers and a joint. You know.
oh, it's funny, man. It's
But
like,
it put a stigma on me. It put a stigma on me with a lot of my friends and my parents. So it changed my whole life. I mean, right at
neither
that time, it literally changed everything.
neither of my kids have got any interest at all, no matter how hard I try. You know, I'm like, come on, do you want to go out? It's a nice sunny day. How about we drop some acid and go and hang out in the park and, you know, we mooch around, you know, go have some fun, you know, experience it before you go off to university. So when you get there, you know what it's like. You know, like, oh, Dad, I don't want to drop acid with you. It's like, come on. Uh,
It's
so,
interesting how it happens. You know, I mean, the progression. You know, I do not believe in the old saying of it's a gateway drug. I don't even consider it a drug. I consider it a plant, and it's only a gateway because you made it illegal. They went and made it illegal. So who has it? Well, the people who are typically the criminal element if your buddy wasn't just somebody who had it and grew it. You had to go get it through. And what happens? Oh, you're hanging out, have a beer. Hey, man, why don't you try this? Oh, sure.
I mean,
I'm
if
in
you
the middle.
take the second you take the mystery away from it, the appeal
Right.
goes. It's not like, oh, I want to try it. I mean, they genuinely have zero interest, and they've been exposed to it all, and like
I,
we've seen it. Well, what's the point? They don't get it, like I don't see the appeal in terms of,
when I
ooh,
went to
let's do
England
something
and
that
I was a
parents
kid,
won't know about.
they had no problem. My dad would not let me drink more than one. And he typically probably didn't want me drinking more than a half, but we'd be there for an hour and I'd only drink one cider on that trip. And I was what, 13, getting ready to turn 14. And and then between that, Spain and Germany, I learned that wow, these cultures, they didn't make the alcohol a big deal with their kids. They drink it at the table like it's normal. They don't want them being drunks, but it's part of the culture. So it's not something you have to
Yeah.
go chase after because you can't have it. It's like, oh, you can't do it. That whole "you can't do it" thing made it people want it more.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't touch. Why not? No, it's don't touch. But why not? Don't touch. Okay, but why not? Well, no, don't touch. Ow. Yeah, that's why you shouldn't touch.
It's the
But the
whole
more you
law
say
thing.
don't touch, the more they want to touch it.
Yeah, it's the whole law thing. Making something a law, and even under my belief system, they made something a law. So now you were bound by the law, and the law made you a slave. Well, that's what happens now. If you tell
mm.
me I can't do something, and I'm over you, and I
We're
make
the
these
we
rules.
we as Generation X are the worst for that. Hey, we are really the fuck you.
Absolutely. It's the cancel. So basically, so what we're saying is cancel culture is all these different laws you're setting up because I cannot be different than you. I can't have a different opinion. I'm still going to love you. Can I have just a little bit of a different
Cancel
opinion, though?
culture is not. I mean, cancel culture. I mean, my personal take is, Gen Xers are a very genuine lot who just say, "Fuck you, we don't trust you. We'll question everything." And yeah, we don't trust. We're a bit cautious of authority. What this lot don't quite cotton on is they're just nah. They don't get it. You still need to be able to joke about things, say things. Context is everything. So much is just
Yep.
taken out of context and then
Yep.
represented. It's just ridiculous, and everybody just follows. What is the latest trend, and it's hot for. It's insane. It really is.
Well, that's why when I said earlier, I
Critical
caught myself.
thinking went out the window. The fact
I
that
said
there's
idiot,
people who
right?
believe the fucking world is flat.
I just relate it
Like,
back to myself. I cancel it out because most of the things I can say about somebody else, I can say about myself because I've done stupid stuff. So if I can
that's
say
stupid shit.
that's an idiot thing to do, and I can say, hey, listen, I've been an idiot. This guy right here, I've been an idiot. It's like,
Yeah. I mean, this
I'm
is a
not
bit
trying
that
to.
everybody forgets in this whole, like, you can't go and look at something that somebody did. If somebody did it 10 years ago and they're still doing
Oh,
it today, then fine, we have a problem. But
right,
if they did it 10 years ago and they ain't doing it today, maybe they learned, maybe they grew as a
right,
person, as an individual. You can't keep, I mean, it's the same problem with, what is going on. There's a whole global phenomenon about it. We're judging the current generation. Well, no, we're judging the previous generation on the moral standards of today, which is just not right. We moved on, we learned from those things, but at the time, they knew nothing else. You can't judge them on today's standards and today's morals. I mean, for crying out loud, by those standards, a lot of people going back 400 years would be burnt at the stake for being heretics. You
well,
know?
if I still tried to stand on what I first learned, I'd be an idiot because I'd be like, oh no, yeah, I thought that yesterday, and I thought I was right about that yesterday, and then I got shown, well, you were partially right, but you had an attitude, you weren't right. And I'm like, oh, okay, my attitude was the problem. Like my
There's a big
attitude was
difference,
the
but
problem.
yeah, acknowledge it, learn from it, move on. But don't, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
hey,
so
hey,
so
I want
these
to
people
be.
who want so what happens is the cancel culture needs to learn to be a forgiving culture and understanding culture because they have to learn that there's a mirror. If they can look in the mirror and see their own mistakes, then they can say, wow, that you did that yesterday and you're doing it again today. Now we have to, like you said, we talk about that. But you're sorry you did that to me. Hey, I forgive you. You don't do it again. Let's work through it and get to the next thing. And if you do it again, then we're gonna have a discussion again. And if you keep doing it, then you really didn't change. You're not really wanting to
Exactly.
change.
Then we have a problem. But I do not want to be judged on shit I did when I was 18. No, no, no,
Oh
no, no.
no way.
I am so grateful for the fact that social media did not exist, because not
Oh,
having my youth documented is fantastic.
oh, I could,
Occasionally a
I,
Polaroid might surface. Burn that.
yeah, I don't mind putting myself out there anymore, because I don't have nothing to hide,
Oh,
so.
now I don't mind about it. I mean, no, who cares? Because at this
Well, the
stage
thing
in
about it
one's
is that I was
career
done.
and life, it's like, I don't really mind
I think
anymore.
I think many of them are gonna be like us, and they're gonna look back and go, "I put that online. What was I doing putting that online?"
Yeah.
Because they don't see the break. They don't see that there's a difference like we did. You can't put my,
Well, there
you can.
wasn't any online for us. That's the beauty about it. I mean, it never happened. The catch now is I can, if somebody new comes and works for me, I can find out all the stupid shit you've been up to on the weekend. I can see you go absolutely smashed with your mates, and that's why you're not in the office on Monday. It's not because Granny died, it's because you had your ass out the fucking window doing tequila shots, and crap like that. And I can see the racial slur comments you made in a drunken fury, which is totally out of context. And now I'm going to judge you for that. They don't realize this shit. We didn't get that. We all have said inappropriate things at times. Anybody who says otherwise is just kidding themselves.
Well, and then
It just
somebody,
wasn't captured
if
by.
somebody gets online and they're drunk, and you didn't see that all the time before them. Maybe there's some stuff hidden in that person they need to work on. Don't
Yeah, but
destroy the person because alcohol did
who
that.
hasn't been at a party and Yeah, but who hasn't been at a party and said a joke that was really off color, whatever the case may be? And there's no malice. It's a humorous joke. Everybody was drunk, but you didn't have somebody in the corner filming it and then posting it online, and suddenly you are an X, whatever. And it's like, whoa, 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 hang on, hang on, hang on.
Well, yeah,
Where's
somebody
the
can see.
rest of that clip?
They take these now. They take these and they piece them together, and they can get us saying whatever they want to make a different conversation by. And it's like,
Yeah.
you
But if
know,
you ever watch that Two Bears, One Cave with Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura, I mean, they had stuff where bits and pieces were being chopped and edited together of what Bert was saying, and they would have him come up with the most horrendous things. It was very, very
I
funny.
saw that there's a guy who does that, or it might be a female, or somebody who does it to Mike Tyson's interviews. And it's like the last one I saw was Mike Tyson and William Shatner go something about going way out, but get too high, and when you watch it, it's like, what are you guys talking about? But then when you go back and watch the whole interview, I went back and watched the whole interview, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys could just make those people sound like they were totally deranged in their minds by that whole interview. You just made it into something that made you go, what are they talking about? But then when you
Yeah.
watch the actual thing, you're like, okay, those comments were 20 minutes apart.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's
Just splice them together
that's the
and
thing
make.
for today is have a critical thought, have a critical mind, but don't you know there's a limit to everything. Question everything, but that comes with a caveat. When they say everything, it's a bit of a general term. They don't literally mean question fucking everything, because some
Right,
things have been proven enough times to be beyond questioning. One of them being, is the Earth round? You know?
right.
That is one that scientists do not need to be wasting time on, and in particularly people killing themselves in steam-powered rockets trying to prove
I
it.
almost, oh, he lives right here. That guy's in this town.
Well, not anymore, he isn't. He's buried in the
When did he
town.
die?
The guy who tried to home-built rocket, the steam-powered home-built rocket, he killed himself in the launch attempt
Recently?
a couple of months
Recently?
ago. Yeah, 2 or 3 months ago or so. Well, more than 2 or 3 months ago. Before this all started, I'm sure. Yeah. The parachute.
I haven't
What
seen his
happened was
limo.
when
I haven't seen his limo for a while.
when it launched, the parachute popped at launch rather than at the top of the arc. And so it just went up
Yeah.
and came back down without a parachute, and he was killed in the pile of metal.
Is that the guy from the town I'm in? Because his limo used
I
to
don't
always
know
be at
if
the
it's the guy from, I mean, I just know it was the guy who was arguing that the
Crazy
world's flat,
something. His
and
name's
he's going to
Crazy something.
shoot himself up because he doesn't trust NASA, and he's going to put himself up into space so that he can see and prove that there's no curvature to the world. Well, I mean, he discovered
he
gravity.
drives around town. He drives around town in a big black limo with his name on the side of it. So I guess he killed him. Oh wow, I haven't seen it in a while. That's why. Mike is his name, I think.
It certainly
Yeah, he's a
proves it.
local guy.
Yeah,
We
certainly
got a
proving
lot of those
gravity
kind of
works.
people up here. It's the high desert. We have a lot of people like that out here. We have a lot of people that are
Hey.
just
So long
they're
as
out
he's
to
not
set the
hurting
proof
anybody
something.
else, I really don't give two shits what he's doing. You know, there's a lot of cultures that
I
have
think
that approach. Like Vietnam's like that. If you're not hurting the other people, they don't really care what you do. You know, just but the second
I almost went down that road. I almost went down that road with the flat Earth and the round Earth. But I have a photo. I have a photo that I took flying from Baltimore to Puerto Rico, and I still have it on a phone. And we were at 50,000 feet, and I took a photo, and you could see the curve.
Of course.
And,
Yeah.
I
denying it.
I tried to have the conversation with my brother, who's is very smart. He was like, "What did you just say?" He said, "You're not going down that road." I said, "Well, I'm just pondering things." He's like, "You still have that photo? You showed me that photo. You still have that photo?" He said, "I said." So right then, I just stopped. I was like, "Yes, I still have the photo. I won't go any further and waste my time."
That's what I mean by this. You know, there's some things that you don't question. You know, gravity does exist.
Yes,
I mean,
it does.
you know, the really amazing
I
thing
totally
is
can tell you all about that.
gravity sucks. It's really easy to prove. Jump off the table and don't put your hands out.
Drop a hammer on your foot,
The trick to flying, throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Yeah, some things. So bringing that back to what you were talking about at the beginning, because I think that's very important, is about the seeds,
Mhm.
and keeping it simple and not, just spreading everything out there. Sometimes it's going to have to be, it's got to be a conscious effort by those who have a righteous mindset about it, and that they don't want stuff to be spread just because they want to make money. And the ones who are doing that, they got to be pointed out. They need to be pointed out and saying, no, this guy over here, do we really want to go with this guy who's only been in business for a year? Maybe not. This guy's been doing it for 6 or 7. I might want to give him some of my money. The guy who's been doing it for 10, proving it, I might want to give him a little more. The guy's been doing it for 20, I might want to give him a little more. So, but those yearly guys, like it's me. If I started selling these first seeds, some people started buying it, they'd be idiots.
I mean, there's no harm in selling them. It's the honesty behind what you're selling, though. That's the problem. The dishonesty.
I don't mean to call people idiots in the sense. I mean, I'm more the idiot of throwing stuff out there saying it's going to be okay, and I didn't test it.
Well,
I'm the idiot.
I mean, it comes down to that being the more educated consumer. If you don't ask the questions, then you only really have yourself to blame. But being what gets you a good reputation in the industry, I would say, if you're going to be producing seeds, is that you're open and honest about what it is that you've produced and what you're selling to people, and to say, look, I haven't really tested these out. This is what I used. It was kind of just a bit of a random hit. If you want to pay me, $10 for a pack of seeds, just bear this in mind. This is what you're buying. This is what you're getting. I'm not selling you fire, and it's going to be the dankest fucking bud you've ever laid your hands on. No.
I think for me, and I think for a lot of people, if they're producing good stuff, and I see it happening because there are a lot of people giving away stuff just so they said they've grown it. Here, I'll send it to you, and I like that. That's cool, But there's a lot of states that are getting ready when they come online. I'm like, I want to be able to have seeds to give the people I live in those states that I know that will grow something, that I can say, here's 100 free hemp seeds, here's 1,000 free hemp seeds. Do what you want with them, because they can give them to their friends. They can get it going, because those people they're going to be back in the same boat that I was. You got to do the research. You got to find out who you can trust, because if if you're not actively, man, you gotta. I didn't take that long. I saw some guys growing this person's stuff and other people talking about it, but I didn't know anything about the person's character and anything that had come behind those seeds. So I'm guilty for not doing enough research, but I didn't think I needed to, so I was angry. I'm honest enough to say I was ignorant by not doing enough research. I just thought by seeing a few people growing somebody's beans that he was an honest person, he was doing good stuff. But yeah, now I know you can just create that. You can create that online. You can create that presence and not even be who you say you are. So you gotta, you want to see that person's face. I'd like to see your face. I like to talk to you. I want to have a relationship with you. I don't want you to be Monsanto where I gotta just call up and order the seeds. If I'm a farmer and I have 1,000 acres and I'm thinking about getting into hemp industry, and I think I can handle all the production of it, I want to see your face. I want to see you. I want to see the person who's involved or somebody involved in your company, because you can tell a lot about a person by seeing the expression on their face, seeing the truth to come out. You can point out a liar a lot of times. You can point out a deceptive person a lot of times because of 50 years on the earth. And you can see that expression, like, oh, I saw you say that, but then that expression told me you're only being half honest. So I'm going to have to
that's
a couple more questions.
What
face to face,
what's interesting is you say like about the facial expression stuff. It's something that's quite odd about this whole new using like Zoom, whatever, to do meetings and things like that. I mean, I noticed it from having to do meetings is you forget if you don't see yourself, if you're not one of the people on the grid, you kind of forget that you're there in terms of that people can see you. You can see everybody else, but if you're physically in the room, obviously, yes, I know everybody can see me because there's a physical presence. But when it's just a little dot on the screen and I can see you, it doesn't always mean, and I can turn me on and off, for instance, being visible.
Right.
But you suddenly forget that, and I mean, I've been on meetings where somebody will say something and I like roll my eyes or whatever. And of course, it's like really everybody suddenly sees it. They go like, why, what was that? And I'm like, oh, shit. Quick.
That's all right. I was saying something last night. I was saying something in the background last night. And I'm like, did I say that out loud? I was thinking that. And I was like, oh, I'm muted. And I went, oh, shit, I'm unmuted. And I'm like, oh, well.
Internal monologue. External monologue.
When you're a creative person, because I started out as a percussionist, so I'm creative in that way. So like me, I play the drums all the time on my teeth and my tongue when I got a tap going a lot of times, and it's like you can do that and not realize you're doing it. People can look at you and say, "What the hell is he doing?" It's like, but you're on TV, so I physically have to try to stay in the.
Yeah, remember you're on camera. It's it's a strange thing to do. Yeah. Then you can see it. Like you watch when somebody's suddenly concentrating on something else because you can see that like don't relax of the face. You know they're not paying attention anymore.
Well, it's one of the reasons for me that I don't think that, and I have a laptop I can set it up on. I don't think that I could do as well in a conversation on here being real, trying to read everybody's chat. That's just me, honestly. I would need somebody to tell me, hey, there's a question from so and so, and he's directing it to you.
Yeah, it's you need a moderator in terms of.
I don't operate on that level. I don't operate on the level that I can read and follow all that stuff. I want to hear you. I want you to interrupt me. I want you to say, hey, shut up for a second. And you can't do that. I can't separate the two. I'm not that ambidextrous. I'm not ambidextrous that way. I'm like music. I can't play the drum set and read music. But if I sat down in it and studied it, I can read that music and relearn it again. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know exactly. I mean, it is difficult, and I noticed trying to quickly check what's going on in the chat, follow what's going on in the conversation, keep hearing that, see the question, formulate an answer, still track what's going on in the conversation is not easy to do.
Because they'll get going sometimes so fast that there'll be like 20 of them after the ones you said something, and 5 people answered you and you didn't even see them. You know, it's like,
And so you do need,
um,
it does require a moderator that can just keep an eye on those sorts of things.
I think so.
Speaking
I
of
think,
moderator,
and
got
we,
like Dan in the chat from the EO show, which is another one. Everybody, yeah, Thursdays coming up tomorrow, Thursday night EO show. Jump on that. What time is it, Dan? I think it's like it's a reasonable hour your time, ain't my time.
that's six. Is that 6 Mountain Time, Dan? Six.
Nothing. What's it? I think they do it like 9. Is it 9 p.m. your time, Dan? I think if it's 2 a.m. my time, 5, 4.
2
Yeah, so it's
a.m. your
9
time.
p.m. So it'll be 6
That's
p.m.
9. Six for me. Yeah, 5 for
5.
him. No, 7. It'd be 7 for him.
Yeah, whoever's on the
If we just wait, he'd answer us.
yeah.
We can have a conversation about something. The guy's like, "You guys just shut up for a second. I'll answer you."
Yeah, they have some really good guests on the show. There we go. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific, 2 a.m. UK.
I like the guys who are, get to share about their experience and how they're doing something different, but also incorporating. I like everybody's conversation, but I'm not really big on a sales pitch the whole time. I don't like the sale anything that has a sales pitch the whole time. I mean, I like the way you do it. Your stuff's in the background. We can all see it. It's there. Some of the shows out there, they have a tendency to, well, they're not around anymore. I think most of those have disappeared. I can think of the one they'd always have to say the products at least 5 times. I think, it's like, oh, you got to say
Yeah.
it at least 5 times. Because in sales, when you're in sales, because I was a salesman, you try to get at least 3 no's before you get a yes. So you want it in advertising, you want to get your 3 or 4 or 5, you know. But anyway, yeah, a lot of good guests, a lot of different levels. Some people aren't even in cannabis. The people who aren't even in cannabis, and they can teach us how to apply, like you're doing with peppers. I heard you talking about peppers last night, and I just dropped seeds that I pulled out of peppers a few days ago. So that's sparked my interest. So I like how the two work together. And you can bring a speaker in that has nothing to do with cannabis, and but they study cannabis, and they can relate the two together. I appreciate those kind of people, because there's people out there who maybe won't accept cannabis until they see somebody else, and that's a lot of what we're seeing. Somebody who didn't have cannabis, had a problem, then they started cannabis, and now they've incorporated the two in whatever industry, in different types of industry, like somebody, massage therapist, the lady, the other one that's on all the time, the channel, the ladies were talking about massage therapy. She started talking right before you came on about massage therapy, how she started incorporating it into what she was doing already, and she started studying it, how she could put these different rubs and THC rubs and stuff, CBD rubs, into incorporate into what she was already doing. So I mean, that sounds good. I mean, 50 something years old.
The cool thing is there's a lot to be learned. There's a lot to be learned from other industries, other, bringing in people from outside, like bringing in some commercial seed breeders for whatever they're producing, whether it be corn or I don't really give a crap what they're doing, but to bring in and say, like, these are the best practices that we follow. This is how we do things. This is how we create these commercial lines, regardless of what you may think of the commercial line. This is how it is done. I mean, they've done it because they need to create things which are uniform in their appearance. So how did you do that? How did you select that? What did you follow? What was that process? That same methodology and process can be followed in what you're trying to do. There's a lot of, there is no really new problem out there. The problems you're looking at, or the challenges you're facing, have been quite often faced somewhere else, but they were just slightly different. And so you can find the solutions of what you're looking for quite often in other areas and other sectors, and say, okay, it kind of does what I need to do. Let me just tweak it a little bit and get it to do exactly what I want it to do. So you just go around and you pick the relevant bits from all these other different technologies or processes and all these different things. You know, you cherry pick the bits that work and then you bring them together. So it is important to see and hear how other verticals or other sectors in this vertical or verticals in this sector, you know, how do they solve these challenges? What do
Well,
they?
this is for me. I guess there's been other times in history, but this is like something. Something feels like totally new, right? It feels like anybody can get involved and should get involved because it does good things for people at different levels in their body because it's already in our body, and it's like, wow,
The
you're at
barrier to entry is very low. It's dead easy to do this. I mean, and that's part of the, you know, it's easy to do, and hence that's part of the catch. I mean, I commend, you know, to put on just a pure, like, okay, the sciencey sort of hat. I commend you for wanting to give out hundreds and thousands or thousands of seeds to people for free. But the sciencey person hat goes, oh my God, that is just polluting the gene, this unknown entity that is going to find its way potentially into all sorts of things that, again, nobody knows what the hell it is. And it just adds another, until we genetically fingerprint everything. I'm not talking about sequencing it, but just fingerprint it all so that you can say, okay, this is this, that's that. These two are closely related. They're not related, you know, because it has the same or a lot of, you know, the same fingerprint, just like they do a DNA fingerprint. You know, it's just looking.
Well, I'm afraid we got a
DNA.
problem thing because I don't think that even if I didn't do mine, the other million people out there not going to do it. You know, I mean, people are still getting weed around the world that has bags of weed that have seed in it.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
Trey,
yeah,
who you'll
exactly.
see on here a lot of times, I told him what I was doing. He said, you should just start a dispensary. You could open up your own dispensary and all your weed could be seeded.
The seed
Sell
dent.
seeded weed. I sell seeded weed and I put all the breeders out of business. No, I'm just kidding. There's one way to do it. You know, you could say, okay, breeders, you know, you put a good stuff out here now. Now we're just going to all give it away. That's what's happening. You
Yeah,
know,
and then
but
people will protect, you know, once you've done that was an analogy I used the other week, or it was
you're
the
never going to put the
first,
breeders out of business.
comparing it like from the musical perspective, like a band, you know, the first album that the band releases was that 10 years of crafting that first album, and it came out and it was tight and it was absolutely amazing and everybody loved it. You know, it was the album of the year. Now the problem is they've got to produce the album of the year next year again, and they don't have 10 years to do it. They've got 1 year to do it, and so it becomes messy. The second album is nowhere near as good as the first. Then the band disappears for 5 years and comes back, and suddenly they have another good album. You know, the pressure on people just cashing in, all they're doing is they're just trying to.
Here's my question now. So we've been doing this for years, right? I got seed. If I would have let any of my seeds pollinate from when I was growing stuff outdoors, and I'd have got a male, and I wouldn't have caught it because we just put stuff in the ground, and you came back and you hoped for what you got. We knew enough that we didn't want males, but I didn't know enough that I did want some seeds. I should have saved some pollen and took that plant a little bit on the bottom and made some. So the situation we have is we've been doing this the whole time. And now how do you put the brakes on something like that?
Yeah, the genie's out of the bottle. I mean, that's the problem. It is the only solution now is when you can do DNA sequencing or fingerprinting at home really quickly and easily, and it all goes to a central database, and you can just reference what you've got. You know, that will be the point. Then I think what we might actually discover is that there is, although like that database says there's 18,000 different strains, at the genetic level, there's only 500. You know, they're all the same. They've just been given different names. I mean, the scary thing is I could take a really gooey, sticky cut of something over here, call it GG4, because unless you've actually had the original, how the fuck do you know? The original is supposed to be cut only anyway, so how the fuck do you know what I'm giving you? But now you tell all your friends this is GG4. And suddenly there's this GG4 kicking around. That's not it. You know, nothing at all. But it's, you know, at this point, does the the reality become your construct. You know, if you believe it is, therefore it is.
Well, yeah. So yeah, so I was talking about when I was saying about my grow a couple weeks ago that I wanted to do it because I wanted to create. You know, I was like, maybe I hope I could maybe create something out of what I got that would grow in my climate, right? For the desert, already strong. And then I put the plants that I bought from him out there. That's from seed, and they're already surviving in the desert. I'm like, I don't need to create another one. I don't need to create a strain that survives in the desert. His stuff already grows good in the desert. So I basically canceled myself out. So my integrity tells me I don't need to go looking for something that's work that's already been done. You know, I can take something that and cross it myself and see if it still does the same thing. But I should protect that, right? I should not. Integrity says don't just let it go. Don't just try to make a big buck. Don't try to be like everybody else. And that's
why
on each
integrity costs. You know,
integrity costs.
you pay for that. You know what you're buying. The reason why that F1 pack of seeds is so much more expensive is because you're paying for 10 years. When you go to a nursery and you buy a tree that's this big and it's $5, or you buy a 19-foot monster and it's $3,000, because the 19-foot monster took 15 years to grow. Now you can spend $5 and wait 15 years, or pay your $5,000, whatever it is, and you got 15 years like that. So if you wanted to create this line, sure, put in the 10, 15 years of work we put in to produce it, or pay us the money and just short circuit it and get it straight away. But that's why, they cost more. That's why people want to put it on the label. That is why you should question that on the label, really. And if it says F2, expect variation up your ass. The F2 is actually probably the worst one to be getting. And actually, the further down that F line you go, the less and less and less, and they often need to reintroduce. That's when the back cross comes in again to reintroduce the vigor back into it, because it dilutes further and further and further down the line you go.
See, after you telling me that you can graft on and you can do all the multiple sites on a plant, I don't feel a need to seed the whole plant now. Even though I may seed a couple whole ones, I don't feel a need, because I thought maybe it was changing the whole spectrum of the plant by doing it down here. If I did it down here, would it change the whole spectrum of the plant? And it doesn't seem like it will, because if you can do multiple places and get a different result, that means I don't have to do the whole plant to get the result. I can just do this one. And but if I want the whole structure of the plant to change to like the seed, then I got to do the whole.
I mean, what you could theoretically do is you could create a female plant that has got 8 different genetic cultivars on it, and you could pollinate all 8 of those from one male in the room, but you hit all of them with the same pollen. It's going to be a nightmare to harvest those seeds, because there's going to be so much mix-up happening. And I mean, that's the problem. Because as I'm sure,
I would rather pollinate the whole room. I would rather pollinate everything.
If you've got properly seeded bud.
If you're listening to some guys, it's like, wow, you get more resin for.
Well, no, I'm talking about if you had like 8 different strains on one plant when you were harvesting the seeds. My God, it would be difficult to keep them up separate, because you know what it's like. If a properly fully seeded bud, you just bump it and it just goes, it just sheds everything, and you're like, okay, so what's what now? I've got 20,000 seeds of everything on the floor. It's a lucky dip.
Do they do that when they're wet?
No, not when they're wet, but when they're dry, which is when you're harvesting the seed. They're fully ripe, the seeds will drop out if you it gets hit hard enough, but usually it's when they're really, really dry. Sounds like a rain stick.
I'm just going to try it. I'm going to put sections I'm going to try to catch everything in separate containers, and anything that free falls is just going to become bird seed or food for. They say they're pretty tasty to eat.
Yeah, to make it a
What's
lucky
that?
dip, you just make it a lucky dip packet. You know, hey, it is what it is. the random packet of fun.
But as Fumi says, don't do. But if I let the whole thing pollinate, I'm probably going to have what 20, 30,000 seeds.
Yeah. You can press the seeds for oil. You can
Eat
make
them.
snack bars out of them. You can do all sorts of shit with it.
Well, he was saying the other day. I think it was Steve that there's more resin on the outside of seeded weed for making like rosin and for hash for making hash. You get more resin off a seeded plant.
I
Is
wouldn't
that
know.
true?
I wouldn't know.
He said it. I'm like,
Mm.
I guess I need a couple tumblers then. And tumblers, you know. I've seen those guys doing that for days. I'm like, they spin that stuff for 3 and 4 days
Yeah.
with seeds.
Mm.
I'm like, I can't do that.
It looks like a
Can't
vortex
do that. I need like
thing
maybe
too.
three. I need like three. I think I don't know. Somebody can tell me. I probably need like 3 or 4 different screen trays, different sizes. Is probably what I need.
Yeah, not to get the seeds out. Now that you just gotta bash them, get all the seeds, and then just find a way of just sifting it. I mean, God, that takes me back. I mean, back in the day, the way you used to know you were buying weed in Durban is it was full of seeds. Otherwise, you're like, hey, what the fuck is this shit? It's like, what are
The
you
guys
selling?
who are doing it to get resin and to make concentrates, they're getting all the stuff off the outside first without breaking the seeds out when it's dry, so they don't have to worry about the chaff and everything
Oh yeah, no, this
getting.
is just more for if you were being sold like oregano rather than weed if it didn't have seeds in it. It's just like this is Durban poison grown in the wild. It gets seeded. That's how. But so you always have to sift it for seeds, and you'd buy like half a pound and then have
I
to
like Durban boys.
break that down and then sit there and with a magazine cover and just drag it up and down the magazine cover, and the seeds would just run off the bottom. you know, and just take handfuls of them and throw them out the window.
Let's see that
Thousands of dollars worth of seeds being thrown by the handful out the window.
that's what 420 initially was, right? 420 was initially a movement, and you were supposed to take your seeds you collected from all year and put them into like a paper towel balled up or toilet paper balled up and tie it so into a ball, wet it, and throw them everywhere you went along the road on 420. Because that's
Seed bomb
typically
the
considered
nation.
it's typically considered the first day of planting season
Mm.
is 420 across
Yeah, over
the
here
board.
they
So
have something called feed the birds, because you see the loophole in the law over here is that hemp seed you get in bird feed. So it's legal to possess seeds in the UK. Absolutely fine. You can have as many as you want. You're just not allowed to germinate them. So the thing about feed the birds is they send out thousands of seeds to people. I mean, thousands upon thousands. And the idea is to go around feeding the birds and just throw seeds. And every year there's a couple of plants that pop up in front of like Scotland Yard, and there in the Scotland Yard flower bed, there's usually like
that'd be
two big
awesome.
cannabis plants that pop up, that don't get taken down too quickly. And outside the Houses of Parliament, you'll suddenly see like 3 cannabis plants, and they're always
that's
thrown
cool.
over the palace
Yeah,
wall. Always gets a few handfuls thrown over the palace wall into the palace gardens.
coming up through the cobblestones, walking down from the Edinburgh Castle. I can see it now. Just little seedlings popping up out of the ground.
Dude, I'm gonna have to go. It's getting late over here, and I've got to get up and do shit in the morning. Thanks for jumping in and joining on. That was really cool.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the education that you guys share and the wealth of knowledge from the years of growing and the willingness to tell me, you might not want to do that. You might be wishing you hadn't done that. So some of those comments from everybody who said that is that I've thought about.
Yeah. Hey, look, part of it's a learning experience. You got to make mistakes to go along. Just try to learn from others. It's usually less expensive. And thanks to everybody in chat for jumping in. That's really cool. Really appreciate it. Yeah, hit the like button, subscribe, whatever it may be. Hey, somebody hit a thumbs down. That makes a change. There's
It
always
still
one.
brings them in, they say.
It's probably the reference.
They say it's safe
LSD.
for the algorithm. So hit that thumbs down button if you got to, right?
Yeah, to prove that it's not just everybody hitting up. All right, dude.
If,
Catch you later.
if you really don't like it, don't hit it at all.
Yeah, precisely. And hit the bell, get the announcements, all that stuff.
Thanks. Steve.
Cool, guys. Have a good one. Stay safe.
Fish
Cheers.
and chips, man.